Prayer by Councilor Muller. All rise, please.
Dear Lord, as we continue to work on behalf of the good people of Enfield, we pray that our decisions will benefit every member of our community. We pray for those struggling to make ends meet. We pray for our students as they will continue their education. We pray for the elderly in our community who live on limited income. And we pray for those who have served and continue to serve in our armed forces. May you pour your blessings on our great town. In the Lord's name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to item 3, roll call, please.
Councilor Muller?
Here.
Councilor Sferrazza?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Suzak? Here. Councilor Ongire? Here. Councilor Bosco?
Here.
Councilor Sakala?
Here.
Councilor Crisati? Councilor Davis? Councilor Denny?
Here.
Councilor Keiner? Mayor Ludwig?
Here.
There's 8 members present, 3 are absent.
Item number 4, the fire evacuation announcement. In case of a fire, we do have an exit doors in the back of the room. Please exit orderly left or right to the back of the room, or to the doors to our left, to the audience's right. Please go through the doors, down to the first door to your left, down through the stairs, out into the parking lot in case of a fire. Moving on to item 5, minutes of the preceding meeting. Special meeting, July 1st, 2019. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
By Councilor Muller, second by Councilor Denny. Is there any additions, deletions, changes to the minutes? Hearing none by show of hands, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstention? 8 in favor, 0 against. Moving on to regular meeting, July 1st, 2019. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Deputy Mayor Suzak, seconded by?
I'm sorry.
So 1 abstention prior,
I abstained from
7 in favor, 1 against from the special meeting. Deputy Mayor Suzak, seconded by Councilor Sferrazza. Any additions, deletions, or changes to the regular minutes on July 1st? Hearing none by show of hands, all those in favor? Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor, 1 abstention. Special guests. Moving on right on to item 6. And again, I want to apologize in advance if I ruin your name. Jeffrey Lenowitz, the Deputy Director of Operation of Public Works. Pretty good. Got your name right. You should end right now. Stop.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. We did a search over the last several months for the Deputy Director of Public Works, and as the council will recall, we did a change in the job description and the duties and responsibilities of the Deputy Director to really oversee operations, and that was done as a result of the recommendations made by the Novak report, which the council adopted and asked us to implement. So Donald is going to give the background of Jeff. Very excited for him to join our team. I think he has the experience and the background to be a perfect fit for this job. And to remind all of us and the folks at home, the Novak report recommended a person to oversee operations. As the Joint Facilities Subcommittee has been endeavoring, they've hired a consultant to look at buildings to see which town buildings should be retained, those that should be jettisoned. And as part of that, this works very nicely that we really need someone to oversee operations as Novak envisioned to really make sure that we're doing maintenance, doing repairs, and keeping our buildings up. The newer ones, such as the high school with all of the newer systems, the Water Pollution Control Center, which will be completely revamped by October of 2020, and the new JFK Middle School, which will be renovated to new. They have a lot of systems. It's a lot of money we're investing, and we need somebody to grapple with all of those issues to make sure we're doing on a monthly basis or a weekly basis or a yearly basis the maintenance and the repairs that we need so that we save money and that we're not confronted later with costly repairs because we didn't maintain what we currently own. It's a perfect time to do it with those 3 major projects, and I'll turn it over to Donald and to Jeffrey now.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Good evening. So there was several applicants, and when we were culling through it, Jeffrey really seemed to, his background at UTC, which you'll get into, really seemed to fit what the new direction of council is going in. I do applaud him on day 3 that this is his day 3, and he's already been to a town council meeting, and his first day was at Joint Facilities, and he's still here smiling, so that's a good thing, so I appreciate that. Jeffrey and I, we did have 1 formal interview with Steve Belinda and I, then we've also had 2 separate, very informal, very long ones, just kind of talk about things and just in an informal atmosphere, and we just seem to have clicked at that time, and things seem to be really heading in the direction that I believe and Chris believes that the council is looking for in regards to buildings and systems and roofing and everything that's going on. I've charged him with 4 really major projects already. One of them was the water treatment for boilers. Another one is the permanent air conditioner at Stowe. Another one is inventorying the entire building systems, and he's busy already. So with that, I just want to say that I'm proud to have him here, and I want him to talk about what he's done for over the last 9 years for his former employer. So.
Thank you very much for having me this evening and letting me introduce myself. I came from UTC. I was with the company for 9 years with the different divisions between the Research Center in East Hartford, Pratt & Whitney in Middletown and East Hartford, specializing that whole period of time in facilities. My specialty is environmental systems and HVAC. I do a lot of work through my whole career, pretty much focusing on the mechanical and infrastructure of buildings. And I'd like to take that expertise that I have and apply it with the NOVAC report. And after speaking with Donald and Mr. Bromson and just kind of seeing what Enfield's up against, and I would like to take my past experience and apply it to the town and try to see if we can really hone in and focus on involving the infrastructure into our daily appetite with all of our work. I would like to see this really kind of just speed roll into something really great, save money for the community. I'm also a town resident, so I have a lot of stake into this as well. I love the commute here. It's fantastic. Everyone that I've met has been very great, and working with me, kind of just getting the ball rolling. So a lot of familiar faces. I'm really trying hard to learn everybody's name, and I'm having a really good time. I love the position, and it seems like the department has a lot of opportunity to evolve and really make this something very special for the community.
Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Thank you.
Any questions? Councilman Sferrazza.
How do you pronounce your name?
Leonowitz.
Leonowitz. Mr. Leonowitz, welcome to Enfield, and I wish you all the success and long career. You said you were at UTC for 9 years
Yes,
prior.
sir.
Any special reason you left UTC, or?
It was mostly personal reasons. I have 4 children that are starting to grow up and trying. I was an off-shift manager, so I worked a second and third prior. So I was really trying to get the hours to be more conducive to family life. I saw this opportunity here and applied, and just happened to work out very well. So I'm very excited to apply what I have done and
Great.
really just keep the ball rolling.
Great. Well, good luck to you, sir.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
Actually, welcome to Enfield. I have to apologize. I haven't given you the package that everybody that comes to facilities gets. I'll get one to you.
Thank you.
Donald? Yeah.
You guys, any other questions? Councilor Muller.
Welcome to Enfield. Could you tell us about some of the licenses you have?
Yes, I currently hold a S2, which is an unlimited journeys person for HVAC. I have a ST2, which is for solar heating, unlimited journeys person. I have a L6, which is a limited low voltage electrician that's mostly specialized into building automation, data acquisition. And then I also hold universal refrigerant certifications, and I have heating licenses in the state of Massachusetts. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilor Bosco.
Love it. I like someone that has gotten their hands dirty and can't be buffaloed when someone says something isn't going to work. So, okay, thank you and congratulations, and
Thank you.
hope everything works out well.
Anyone else? Not to put you on the spot, first of all, welcome to Enfield.
Thank you.
Curious, since you've been to facilities, I think you get a taste of what we're trying to achieve there by keeping certain facilities and then hopefully closing and selling them to the private sector to get them on the tax rolls. Just maybe some general ideas coming from the private sector where, as I'm sure you know, majority of the private sector has consolidated their real estate. So I'm just curious if you think we're on the right track there and kind
I
of.
think it's a very good idea.
Just so, not to put you on the spot, but be curious as we new set of eyes. We've been working on this for over a year now.
I think it's a very good idea to look at your existing infrastructure and your building inventory and really prioritize what your needs are for the community. And if it's not required, it is better to, jettison the property, give it back to the tax base, and bring a revenue source to the town. Holding on to old infrastructure is very costly. There's long-term problems with it. So really just having a hard look and really understanding the real numbers is what really comes down to it.
Appreciate that. Anyone else? welcome to Enfield. We're taking it easy on you tonight.
Thank you.
Maybe and then a month from now, we might not be. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Donald.
Thank you, Jeff.
gentlemen.
Thank you,
Welcome.
Donald.
Moving on to item 7, public communications. It is 7:10. We have an hour. Again, we ask that you please refrain from personalities. You have 5 minutes. When anyone, you can speak on any topic you like. This is a general meeting. Anyone like to speak to the council at this point? Kelly. Just name and address, please.
Kelly Himmler, 10 Hartford Avenue. So last week I was down on Yale Drive and I noticed that it's a mess. It's being dug up and paved over, patched over, dug up again. The gas company is putting in gas, which is a good thing, but it's leaving the road a mess. So I talked to several of the residents, and of course they're not thrilled about it. So it got me thinking, I'm not sure when it was, but several years ago down at Catalina Drive, there was the same problem. And you guys, or maybe it was a different council, had gone to the utility company and asked them if they would just repave the whole road when they were done, which makes sense. So I was just wondering if you could put that on your list of things to do. And that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak for the council at this time? Sir.
Good evening. My name's Tom Walsh, Roseanne Street. I hope before they repave Yale Drive, they pave my street. But I came here about the roads tonight, and I want to welcome the new guy, too, because maybe he is open to new ideas. I watch how we do our roads in this town, and we pave them, and then a couple years later, my neighborhood, following 6 months, it was all cracked, and my street was left out of that overlay. But I was just out in Summers at my brother-in-law's house, and I noticed they chip seal out there. And I noticed that East Windsor chip seals. But Enfield doesn't chip seals. We hog them out and we build highways on side streets. I watched them do the road at the end of my street, Weymouth School Road. They dug down about 2 feet, put an all-new base and everything. And fantastic job. It's all cracked again. As a matter of fact, we're getting a pothole on there. Thank you, Joey. My wife called you, and they did put a little bit of asphalt at the end of my street where we're dropping the front tire in there. Yeah, maybe this new administration here in the Public Works Department could look at maybe using our tax dollars a little more efficiently, and maybe start chip sealing some of these side streets instead of spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to do a street that, full of houses, instead of, maybe spread some of that money out. I mean, maybe somebody could call Summers and see how much they did miles out there. And East Windsor does it. I don't understand. Somebody told me years ago when I came, I stopped coming, by the way, about 4 years ago. A lot of new faces up here. I don't know, after the fiasco with the sewer tax and then when they opened up the charter and nothing was done, I figured you guys weren't listening, or the other people weren't, so I stopped coming. But no, like I said, if you could maybe look into using some chip sealing, and maybe spread our dollars out. And I liked your comment about maybe we could start maintaining stuff in town, because we wouldn't be where we were at with the sewer system if we maintained it. And I used to know somebody who worked there, so don't try to tell me we maintained our sewer plant. And another thing, too, if you want to save our sewer system, I drove around town tonight just to get an idea of what's cracked, other than my street. And maybe if we dug some of the trees out of the sewers, our storm drains, right on your street, Joey, we got plants growing up out of the sewers. That doesn't happen in a week. So, that's about all I got to say. But maybe another thing, too, you guys could come and actually fix the end of my street this time, because for the past couple of years, every time it opens up at the end, they drop in a little more asphalt, and it lasts a couple months, and then when winter comes, it drops out again. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Anyone else? Julie.
Hi,
Welcome.
I'm Julie St. Amant, 5 Maple Road from Enfield, Connecticut. It is a road. It is mostly in Enfield. and we are taxpayers, and most of us have letters from our mortgage companies, codicils to our title insurance that say that we're on a right-of-way that's going to be maintained by the town of Enfield. I have a petition from the residents and from the residents of Old Maple Farm condominiums, which is at the end of our road. I didn't get all of them because it's summer and people don't want to open their doors to strangers. But basically, we're just asking that the road be adequately maintained. We need both a long-term and a short-term fix. As you've seen, I'm sure you've seen some of the pictures of it. Large puddles, big craters. It's basically not a safe way to enter our properties any longer. It's unsafe for our cars. It's killing our property value. Case in point, number 15 sold for $28,000. It's 2.63 acres. On Elm Street, you can buy a 0.2 acre lot for about that much money. Yet we continue to pay the same tax rate. We don't have public sewers. We had to bring in our own water main. So we're just asking for the services that we feel like we deserve as taxpayers. I also have some quotes from Rafferty Construction. They did the work on the road in 2007 and 8. So it gives you an idea of what was done then, how it was done, and how much it cost.
Now, in the interim,
So Julie, if you would just give to the town clerk the petition and the place. Go ahead, Gary. Name and address, sorry. Name and address.
Gary St. Amant, 5 Maple Road.
Thank you.
Enfield,
Yep,
Connecticut.
go ahead.
I bought this property in '85. We've lived on it all these years. Had a guarantee that the town of Enfield would maintain the road, and they have. The best part of it was when Rafferty did it, because he had the proper equipment. Within the past 5 years, the town has brought in millings. They've ruined the road. They've raised the road by 6 to 8 inches. If you come into my driveway and look out, you're gonna see about a 10-inch thing and then a dip. You can't get a normal car down that road without bottoming out. The last time they came in, we had a big puddle. They came in with a bucket loader or whatever and just pushed it along and made things worse. So when we get heavy rains, all of the rains from the condominiums flow down that road right into my driveway. I have got a lot of millings sitting inside of my driveway because I'm tired of shoveling it back out. And because we're doing something here, I wanted to leave it there so when the mayor came out, he could see it. The mayor came out the second time with a 4-wheel drive truck because the first time he couldn't get his car down the road. I've never once missed on paying my taxes. I'm a proud owner of that home, and if you go look at it, I keep things up. There's no blight on my road, except, well, next door I get an elderly woman, but they mow, but they don't mow as often as they should. Maybe she's too old to be there, but her son keeps her there. But that being said, everybody on that road pays their taxes, except for, I think, maybe the last person who bought for 28 grand, 2.6 acres, because nobody else wanted it. The house had mold, but the property still has value. But the property was given away. All I'm asking for is what I've had in the past. What I can get for my tax dollars. Get somebody there to grade the road. It may not ever be paved, but I need something that's passable. My car only has 5 to 6 inches of clearance. I got a serpentine every day to avoid hitting a rut. And one of the people on my road already busted a coil spring on their car. If you got a bad back, any of you, take a ride down the road, see what it feels like. I'm not a young man anymore. My back, it is what it is. But if any one of you lived on this road, you'd certainly want the same. I'm not asking for more than, these quotes from Rafferty that we just gave you, that's one house. That's one tax dollar house per year. The rest of it's all yours.
And again, if maintenance was done on a regular basis, that probably wouldn't be necessary to spend that much at one outlet.
20 seconds, sorry. Don't mean to cut you off.
Great deal of water coming in my yard, though. We've got a sand pit, it's like a river basin now. It's hard to grow grass.
Thank you, folks.
Hi, Patty
Welcome.
Armstrong, 11 Maple Road, here for the same reason. I bought the house about 18 years ago. We were also advised that this would be maintained by the town of Enfield. Had several dealings with highway maintenance, saying, get your neighbors and you guys pave it. But then, over the last few years, it's been pretty well. They've been pretty good. You know, the quality of repair has been less because they sold the grader years ago, the town did, and then they just, you know, did the bucket loaders. But it was passable, so we did it. And we said, okay, great. This year, come April, after the heavy, heavy rains, no one came out. I gave a call to the highway department saying, hey, I understand there's been a lot of heavy rain. Just wondered when you had us on your radar. We don't. That road is in Long Meadow. We're not taking care of that anymore. I said, okay, well, that's news to me. I've not been notified of this, and I'd like a call back from the director. I've yet to get a call back from the director. No one has called me back from the highway department. So one of the things as a taxpayer, I expect that I have access to utilize the services that we pay taxes for. I can't get my mail unless I go down that road. I can't get my kids to their bus stop unless I go down that road. I can't have emergency services come to my house. Now, they mentioned a bad back. I've had back surgery. My husband's had back surgery. I'm this close to having additional back surgery. We can't utilize the road in a normal way. People don't drop their children off at my house. They drop them off at the end of the street and make them walk, which is good for them. They need to walk. However, you know, the repairs to the cars and just the fact that it takes, and we're not talking I'm trying to go 10 miles an hour. We can't, literally, I'm in first gear in a standard, putting on the brakes to try and maneuver. And I have less clearance than his car, and I've bottomed out. So I'm hoping I don't need repairs. So the other piece of this is, we brought in town water, we brought in a main. I have the information. I do have a call out to the head over there at Connecticut Water, but the information we have is that it is in Connecticut. They put this, you know, water main in Connecticut. While it might be a slight property, you know, in Long Meadow, what have you. I also have a letter here, which I gave a copy to, from 1988.
right?
This one's from 88. So there was one from 85 that the town of Enfield maintains this roadway. And again, as we've said, they have for the most part until this year. So while I understand that the mayor and some council members have reached out to Long Meadow and they're meeting with them, in the meantime, I would ask that they come and do at least the bare minimum, which has not cost the town much at all, because they're not bringing in any fill that's probably junk from other roadway projects and a bucket loader to scrape it. Just give us some kind of access to get in and out of our properties would be really helpful until, you know, a short-term and or long-term goal is created. And then the other piece of that is I think it would be more cost efficient to just maintain this road than it would be to actually build a new road that is in Enfield. Because if Long Meadow doesn't agree to maintain that road, I would assume as taxpayers we have the right to have access to our town. But I don't know. I mean, that's just me. So I would just hope that we can get something done sooner than later, because we cannot go for much longer. We can't wait for the politics of this to be hashed out. We just can't. So I appreciate the work you're doing and the fact that the mayor and a few of the council members came out on a Sunday and, you know, were gracious enough to listen to our grievances and, you know, understand that, you know, we're just asking for the bare minimum at least to be able to access the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Young.
Good evening, George Young, 8 Holly Lane, Enfield. One goal tonight is to support the funding of more money for the Henry Barnard Roof project without it going to referendum. It seems that the town has a 4R approach to budgeting. resolution, referendum, rejection, and resubmit. Now that the digestion period has ended for the amount of stuff fed to us on the July 1st meeting, I would like to make some comments related to the Henry Barnard Roof project. I will try to give you some food for thought and some thinking outside the box as it relates to the town charter and the limitation on capital improvements so the monies get passed as a resolution. At the meeting of the council on July 1, the Henry Barnard Roof project was addressed. There was originally a request for the following transfer of funds, $74,663. It was subsequently changed to $154,000 for the HB roof project. The deputy mayor said the bid for Phase 2 for HB roof project came in at $861,550. The amount covered with the $74,663 would be $849,663 of available funds. Therefore, the project would be underfunded by approximately $11,887 and unable to have a purchase order written to start the project. That's when the funding and the transfers to the project were changed. In fiscal year 2019, fiscal Phase 1 had $506,000 appropriated for the HB roof project. But with a fund transfer of $154,000, there is now $660,000, which is enough to start the roof project. So where did the extra money come from to fund this project, since the charter limits the capital improvements to 1/100% of the current grand list without having to go to referendum? The finance director advised that based on his research, the town can also use the non-taxable part of the town, such as state property, churches, etc., to increase the amount available to be used towards the capital improvements, which was approximately $70,000. Unless the council and everyone else knew that the $70,000 was derived from approximately $350 million of non-taxable property, I wondered why no one asked the question as to how the $70,000 was obtained, since the key figure of $350 million was not mentioned. I was first of all shocked that it was that high because I had never really thought about it. Naturally, I had to check it out, and I was surprised to find out that the town book had $368,660,650 of this type of non-taxable property, which would probably give us a little more leeway to the roof project. This leads me to my second question, which is when calculating the original limitation just based on the grand list, what was the valuation used? The town charter version dated April 5, 2019 in Chapter 6, Section 9 states, quote, "The council may by a vote of 6 or more members adopt a resolution appropriating money for capital improvements. Any appropriation that exceeds in any fiscal year 2/100% of the current grand list shall not be effective until it is submitted to and approved by a referendum," end of quote. The key words here are grand list. I saw no definition in the charter for that grand list. However, I did read a portion of the Connecticut statutes and OPM's guide, which states that, quote, "The grand list is a record of all taxable and tax-exempt property in a taxing jurisdiction as of the assessment date. Assessors generally have to file the grand list by the end of January," end of quote. I believe that the amount to apply the charter limitation to would be the total grand list before the exemptions for which a taxpayer may qualify and the exempt property, and not the net grand list after these exemptions. I'll finish a little later, so
Still got a
hold
minute?
that thought.
You still got a minute?
I'd rather
You're doing a
stop
heck of a
at this
job, by the
point.
way. Your numbers are
Thanks.
spot on. Thank you, sir. You get 3 minutes right after this. Anyone else like to speak for the council for the first time? He was aware of his time. You had a minute left, Mr. Young. You get, sir.
He wanted to keep us in suspense.
Welcome.
Welcome. Joe Albert, 229 Columbia Road, Enfield, Connecticut. First, I want to thank all of you here that are here tonight for your, the work that you do. You don't get paid for it. I appreciate, and my family appreciates everything that you do, and I hope that the town is going to go in the right direction come November. I know there's been some talk around town, but I hope that the town can weather the storm. And good luck to Liz Davis and whoever else is not going to be running again. I think the town needs to move forward and with a positive thought, not a negative thought. On that note, You guys have a good night.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Anyone else like to speak for the council for the first time? Anyone else like to speak for the council for the first time? Bob?
Bob T. Katz, 815 Woodgate Circle. Reading the write-up on the East Windsor meeting, it was brought to the attention of the East Windsor officials that under state law, you don't have to announce your name or address when you speak in public meeting. And I'd like to have that clarified by the town attorney to see if that's true, because if it's true, then you shouldn't be asking for the names and addresses.
Okay. Yep. Okay, got it. Yep.
It may be wrong information, but...
Fair question, sorry. Yep.
Okay. I'm very concerned about how the state of Connecticut is ignoring Enfield. Lamont wants to take away the $760,000 we're supposed to get for the East Windsor Casino. He wants to cancel it. Enfield's going to lose on it. And the maintenance of Route 91 from State Line down to King Street is horrendous. Number one, the lights don't work at exit 46. I haven't checked the other 3 exits. They're all burned out. No, it's been burned out for the last 6 months. Nobody comes down to fix it. They took the trees down on exit 49 months ago.
Right.
They're still laying there. All the invasive plants along the walls, the buffers for the sound. They don't do any cutting of the invasive plants. They're growing over the walls. The exits are in horrible shape. We're the last ones to get mowed. So I think it's about time, with the 40,000 people of Enfield paying taxes to the state, maybe we should stop collecting taxes because the state doesn't do the job. And I wish somebody, Chris, get after the state to come up here and start doing some maintenance instead of paving down in Windsor Locks and fixing their area up. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Anyone else like to speak for the council for the first time? Anyone like to speak to the council for the second time? So this will be 3 minutes. Mr. Young, I'm going to give you an extra minute. I have discretion since you didn't use your full minute before.
George Young, Holly Lane, Enfield. Going back to what I previously said, if we use the town's net taxable grand list as of October 1, 2018, we probably have the following result. The net taxable was $2,933,057. Around that, times .002, you'd have $586,611 towards the roof project. And then if you added in the non-taxable that we just found out about last meeting of $368,660,650 times .002, you'd get another $73,732. That total comes up to $660,000, no referendum needed for the roof project. And that's what I think you all passed as a resolution last time. However, when we add the exemptions for people that get certain credits back, there's another $56,820,940 back to the above. At .002, we could add another $11,364, which would increase the amount available without a referendum to $671,000, or approximately $11,000 more. This would probably have no effect on the 2019 budget, as the monies could be transferred from the school board sinking fund to the Henry Barnett roof project in 2019, and the fund would still have $43,000 left. It would be something that could be utilized going forward. The other key words are capital improvements. Does this mean the aggregate of capital improvements, or does it mean each individual project? In regards to the South River Street Bridge project, the town is funding $580,771 for fiscal year 19. That could be the original net taxable figure times the .002, I don't know, which is approximately .002 of the net grand list. Neither the exemptions of $56,820,000 nor the exempt property of $368,660,000 were used to increase this amount. On page 10 of the Q&A From the public hearing of April 17th, the estimated cost was $3.3 million, whereas on page 1 of the same report, the Connecticut Department of Transportation budget shows $3,375,000. I'm not sure which is correct. The town is expected to pay 20% of the total cost, and the federal is expecting to pay 80% back through the state, as I understand this. If capital improvement means each individual project, why would we not have added more money for fiscal year 19 to get the maximum of 0.02% specified in the charter, so we won't be constrained in the future if the funds are available? As the deputy mayor said at the last meeting, it may not be a way to run a business. However, creative accounting can be very helpful to achieve goals that are otherwise unattainable. If you follow the example that OPM shows, it indicates the total of each category, less exemptions, to get to the net grand list. I believe the charter says grand list, and that would be before exemptions. Are we missing an opportunity? We probably have time, if my interpretations are correct, to adjust the fiscal year 2019 budget amounts if necessary, and someone is willing to do so. It would be best if we can get something passed as a resolution and not have to go to referendum only to have the taxpayers reject it, when it will then be reworded and resubmitted again for taxpayer approval. Hopefully, monies returned to Enfield will be put in a sinking fund for the next roof project. I'll hold off for the next, unless I have a couple.
You have 20 seconds? Can you fit?
You got 5 minutes more.
Anyone else like to speak for the second time? Bob?
Bob.
Welcome, Bob. I didn't make you say your name and address.
Bob T. Katz. Yeah, I'll go along with the system.
You'll get along for now until we get the attorney. All right.
Till the attorney makes a decision. You know, the other day I was listening to some old jazz, and the Andrews Sisters. They had a hit song, Six Jerks in the Jeep, and then I turned on the July 25th Planning and Zoning meeting. Now I know where that song came from. It seems to me that the planning and zoning is running this town, where it should be the town council. I think it's about time the town council put planning and zoning in their place and tell them their policy and their mission, because some of those people got to be bounced out. They don't even know what they're talking about. They can't even they make negative motions. They can't even make a positive motion. You know, at the end of World War II, there was 1 million Marines waiting to invade Japan, over 1.5 million, 2 million Army. The Marines wanted to leave the island to the vultures. That's how angry they were on all the island hopping. But after Truman dropped the bomb of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the hit song right after that was titled Nagasaki. And Judy Canova in September said, "There's happiness throughout the world. The war has ended. The lights will be on again, and the White Cliffs of Dover will be free." Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. Anyone else like to speak for the council for the second time? One last time for the third time? Mr. Young.
George Young, this will be it. Speaking of assessments, I'd like to go back to my comments several months ago about vehicles in the town that do not have Connecticut license plates. I realize it would be a burden for the Enfield Police Department to do anything about this, and I understand that. However, it should not preclude the assessor's office from being a little more aggressive to collect taxes on your neighbors' vehicles that should pay taxes to the town of Enfield as you do. As OPM states, and I'll quote, "Motor vehicles are subject to taxation in the city or town where, in the normal course of their operation, they most frequently leave from and return to or remain. All motor vehicles a taxpayer owns on an assessment date are subject to taxation regardless of whether the Department of Motor Vehicles issues a Connecticut registration for them." That's the end of the quote. I believe the assessor's office should take on the challenge to enforce this and reduce some of the anger that many express when it comes time to pay their July tax bills. I have some suggestions that the office might try. Obtain the list of new purchasers of homes in Enfield from out of town and state. Contact them by letter to inform them of the rules. You should go back a couple years to get your list because many have lived here and still have not registered their car in this town. It should be also mentioned that failure to report the unregistered vehicles on a property declaration form could subject them to a 25% failure to report penalty on the personal property that many are charged each year. On a different note, it was finally welcome news that the 5 fire districts are in the process of utilizing the same training facilities to save costs in standardized training. This is another good step in the right direction as several fire departments respond to a fire at the same time. I look forward to the day when the 5 fire districts are unified in many other ways, and maybe the fire district mill rate will be the same for all areas of town. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak for the council at this time? Bob.
Bob, again, you know, I watched the last meeting. There was somebody who was angry about the charter, about the number was too low to go to referendum. Well, I found out, I was told that the charter is at the public library with all the names on the back who were on the Charter Commission. Many people on the Charter Commission at the time wanted to get rid of the town council government and go back to selectman government. Of course, that was defeated. There was many people wanted to raise it to $1 million, but the majority felt that the number that they had was adequate, and that was their last chance to control the town council spending and the town spending, because many feel that the town is out of control as far as spending is concerned. That may not be the case now, but that was their last chance. And they just didn't want to change it. So that's the story to your next charter commission. You can, I think Chris came and wanted to raise it to $1 million, but they said no.
Anyone else like to speak for the council at this time? Going once, going twice. Declare public communications closed. Move on to item 8, council communications. Councilor Bosco.
Through to the mayor, to the town manager, couple things that were said throughout the night in public communications. I'd like to either clarify or get some kind of bearing on them. First one was Kelly and Yale Drive. That was something that Donna, Ed, and I did over on Catalina, I think it was. And what happened was they had so much work done in the street, we asked the water company for their price on what it was to fix the mains after they came back and repatched. And then we used that monies towards grinding and reclaiming the road. And it's actually saved the town quite a bit of money because I think we did it for a third of the cost and we got the road graded. So through the town manager, I'd like to know if that's possible to do down there. Because, I mean, you're pretty, you know, you pay attention. And that's what we need, people from the audience to pay attention and remind us when things are happening so we can get the right things done. Tom, chip sealing. We tried it. We had a whole back row of people complaining because it's too rough and their kids couldn't play on the streets. It works okay where there's a lot of traffic, but I think it was Circle Drive we did, and really it's so rough. You couldn't walk on the street barefoot for sure, and it was so rough that I don't even think they could skateboard down it. It would throw you like this. We also did Windmill, and with the traffic on Windmill wasn't bad. But it was the residents that complained so much that that was the end of our endeavor on chip sealing. But we tried it, and it really didn't work. We actually had to go and redo Circle Drive because it was that bad. And then also, there's something with it. The crack can only has to be so wide. It can't be narrower, it can't be wider, or it doesn't work right. And I think was a half inch or something. Any more than a half inch, you can't crack seal. And when you get down below a certain thing, you can't seal them either to do it. So we tried, and we heard the screaming. Maple Road. Trust me, you're on our minds. We were talking about it again Sunday. You know, the problem that I think you're running into is a problem that I have at my place over on South Road. We did the road with millings. Millings work very well till you have water running through them. And then what do? You go and you patch the hole, but it's all compacted around the milling, and then it never compacts in the milling, and next time it rains, it blows it all out. But the problem is, you know, when we do this, there's rules and laws and stuff that we just have to make sure that we're all on the same page and doing things right and correct to get you taken care of, so we're not doing something where we are going to jeopardize the town into a bigger problem. So you are in our minds, and we're constantly thinking and trying to figure out what we're going to do. So I don't think it's going to be a fix tomorrow, but we're going to come with a more permanent solution.
Spots down tomorrow would be great.
We got to come down with a more permanent solution, and I think part of it's going to be reclaiming it and then doing it right, but we are looking at it. Now, Tom also stole my thunder tonight, because one of the complaints I had for tonight is I've been driving around town, all through Rocket Run area, Deborah Street, Donna Street, where roads have been butted, you know, because we start the road and we stop them. There's grass lines running across the street. Kimberly Drive has the same problem. I was driving down Beach Road, I seen grass coming out of the road. So I'm looking around at all these roads that we had just paved, you know, within the last 12 years, and they got grass coming out. And one of the problems I think too that we're having is we have the sweeper, but we're not burying it deep enough in the curb, because there's also, you're seeing a lot of grass coming up from the curb and growing from the curb to the edge of the road. So, you know, what's going to happen is you get them roots, the water starts there, it starts breaking it apart, and then we find that we have big problems. And I think I was on Beach Road today, and I noticed one of the catch basins sinking. And then I know I brought it up to you before, I haven't heard nothing. We fixed a sewer main on Manning Road, or not Manning Road, Northwood Street, and that's been a year. And we require all the contractors that work in the road to do a center line mill. That road was cut, it was patched, and it was not repaired correctly. And what happens? That joint starts to fail, and we're going to be paying for a road that we did. And we need to fix the roads properly after we get done, just like we make the contractors fix them. So that's my little stint for tonight, and thank you, and that's it.
Councilor Sferrazza.
This past week, like everybody here, I think you've watched the news and you've seen about these tragic active shooting scenarios that have played out in El Paso, Texas, and Dayton, Ohio. 30-plus innocent lives taken for no reason. I'm bringing this up because the active shooter scenarios that we see around our country, although maybe we associate them with schools, they could happen at malls or public gatherings or whatever. And when I was the police chief, there's not a day that went by that I didn't concern myself and always think about what are we doing in town in the event that would happen. Now, let me clarify, we are no greater risk than any other town. So people would ask, why did I have this, I guess you could call it a compulsion about paying attention to this. And I'm not sure if it was the phone call the morning the Newtown tragedy happened, and I just envisioned what happened to those children. But shortly after that, the public safety director at that time, Mr. Bromson, and myself traveled to Washington. We went to a seminar on active shooters. And we took that information and brought it back to Enfield and immediately implemented what we could. And I was so happy, Chris, that this morning you had inquired of the chief what preparations we do have in town. And maybe under your segment, you could let the public know. I'm very happy to see that all the programs that we are doing in Enfield, we didn't just start them now, we started them 10 years ago. And without exaggeration, we were the leaders in this state in preparation of active shooters. Again, not that we were at a greater risk. I just thought the odds and the consequences were too great. And I never wanted to pick up the phone the morning after a tragedy and say, hey, Chief, what did you guys do to prepare for this? We don't have all the answers, but we did what we could. And I want Mr. Bromson, I think it's just appropriate this week with what happened, just to let the public know what things we are. And as I look through these programs, they're programs that were implemented probably 10 years ago. So I don't believe it's my intent to alarm the public that we should worry about this stuff all the time. We're free people. We should live our lives. But I do think, unfortunately, the times we live in, there has to be a situational awareness where you are. You have to just not live your life, but you need to be aware. And it is negligence and criminal for a police department or a community not to prepare. And I think when you hear from our town manager, it should give some comfort to the residents. Not that we're 100% protected, we're not, nobody is, but we have been on the leading edge of this. And when I was at the state capitol earlier this year working on the best practices for school security task force, I got to tell you, I was pleased and at the same time surprised that some of the programs that some of the towns are actually doing, they weren't similar to what we had in place here at Enfield. They were our plan. They took our plan and they're implemented it in the school systems, and I know that we're working on that here. So, Mr. Mayor, when it's the manager's time, if he could just address that. Thank you.
Councilman Mueller? Councilman Geyer? Good.
Okay, dinner on the green will be held on Saturday, October 5th from 6 to 10 p.m. Farm fresh food, live music, cash bar, and virtual silent auction. For more information, go to erfcinc.org. Isnuntuck will be hosting a Super Saturday on August 10th. Admission, advising, financial aid in the registrar's office will be open from 9 to 2. So if you can't make it during the week, they have Saturday hours. Isnuntuck is a partner in an $8 million apprenticeship grant received for the CSCU system. The CSCU system is 17 institutions, the 12 community colleges, the 4 CSUs, and Charter Oak. It is a Department of Labor grant aimed at developing and expanding advanced manufacturing apprenticeships. The Enfield Regional Farmers Market opens Wednesday, August 14th from 4:30 to 6:30 at the Town Hall on the Green. The market is celebrating its 6th season, and each will feature different vendors. I would also like to thank everyone that volunteered at the 4th of July town celebration. We could not have done it without your help. I would also like to thank the building and grounds crew for doing an awesome job. They did a really good job. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Geyer?
First, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight, and the very topics that you bring up, we're all discussing, so we're aware of it, and thank you for coming and expressing those concerns. I have a couple announcements. The Alex Fisher Foundation is having a fundraiser on Sunday, this Sunday, August 11th, from 12 to 4. It's going to be at Pleasant View on Route 83 in Summers. Any questions about this, you can call 860-305-3075. They're going to have a food truck and a cash bar and a kids area. They're also going to have live music. Also, the Enfield Together Coalition, along with the faith-based community, is going to have a youth rally for all the kids that attend all their churches. The focused age group is from 7th grade through high school through 12th grade. They have a speaker that's going to come in. His name is Dr. Michael Ferris. You can Google him, and he's a world-renowned speaker, so we're really excited about this. And the date they're going to have that is November 6th. And the new church in town, New Day, up on Route 5, they've volunteered to host this event. So everyone's invited to that. Also, I wanted to commend the 4th of July celebration and the Mount Carmel for all their hard work this summer. There's a lot of people in town got to enjoy that. Also, the Commission on Aging, they have a minor home repair jobs that they do, and they helped over 80 people so far. And I know we still have some days left in August, but for the seniors in our town, they'll go out and they'll help you even change a light bulb if you can't do it, put air conditioners in and out, those kind of things. I'd like to say that I did a ride-along with a police officer a couple weeks ago. I went with Officer Steve Pryor, and I wanted to do that to get a better understanding of what it's like to be driving around in the cruisers and what they face every day. And I did his full shift with him from 4 in the afternoon till midnight. So it was very eye-opening, and I got a good education, and I was just so impressed with Officer Pryor and how he handled people and the calls that we got, and his level of understanding, his kindness, his knowledge about the town, everything. He just did a great job. But was a little tough for me was our very first call was an overdose, and we had to go to the house, and it was a young man from town, and it's just heart-wrenching. When Officer Pryor got back into the cruiser, he said, "Now this is the hard part. We have to go to the father's house and let him know that this has happened." So it's just such a tough job they do. We pulled up to the father's yard, and he was outside working in the yard, and I waited in the car. I thought it was kind of a personal moment for them to relay this information, and he just buried his face in his hands, and it was just heart-wrenching. So. These fundraisers that we're having for Alex Fisher and also the faith-based community, we're trying to keep our kids in check, and this war on drugs is pretty serious. So I want to commend Officer Pryor for the great job that he's doing. And that's it.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Suzak?
All right, so I'm going to start with roads. Tom, I agree with you. As a matter of fact, I've asked for estimates for Willstar Circle and Homestead. The road is totally crumbling. To just be, come in, mill it, and overlay it. Because these roads have been there for 50 years. If we can get 10 years out of a road or something like that, we're going to be better off. I agree with you. And like Joey said, we tried the chip sealing. I've seen where they spray the whole road and oil it and then chip it. But usually those do work better on main roads. So we've done it. It does work, but we've also gotten in a little bit of hot water over that as well. I guess on Elm Street, I had a question. They're doing the sidewalk work on Elm Street. Is that being done in conjunction with the water company? If we could find that out, because it looks like it is. No? Donald's shaking his head back there. It's not being done in conjunction to any utilities? We're just replacing sections. Okay. I thought I saw a water company truck out there. Okay, so roads. I got my roads in. Maple Road, I'll tell you, I drive an Outback, and it's the first time I've ever seen this car have difficulty on a road. Whether we start to fix it or we do something, we need to at least fill those holes in. It's really almost impassable. Because I went down, and I did go as far down as the house that sold, and I thought, I hope I don't have to be towed out of here. I couldn't believe, when the mayor called me, he said to me, I couldn't believe how bad it was. And I said, you have to be exaggerating. And I did call him up and say, Mike, you're not exaggerating. We need to do something as soon as possible on that. Okay, so I got done with roads. Let's talk about the roof. So the roof, the 849,663 gets me phase 2 without doing, I guess, things that would have to be redone in the next 2 years. So we're actually going to do it correctly. There's a small section, it's the section from the bar of the H to the addition that included the gymnasium. That part was $258,000. That was our alternate one. That's the alternate that I don't have enough money for. Mr. Young, you're right. We got to, we can scrap together enough, but I still can't get to $258,000. I can get to maybe 170. I enlisted the council to vote with me and defy the charter. The town attorney, I thought, was going to have heart failure over this. I don't understand how we get to a point where we don't do things logically and we do things so strictly by the numbers. And in reality, we're getting 70% back. I think that we also need to address the fact is, I know we have to look at the whole project because somebody might default on it. But in sometimes being very cautious, we're getting ourselves into situations where we're not wisely expending tax dollars. And I mean, we may need to have to pay $10,000 to the architect, $10,000 to the person who has to oversee everything, just because we can't do that little section. And I did attend the meeting at the field for Henry Barnard. We have had no field issues. As much as this roof is 35 years old and it's leaking, we've had no decking problems, we've had no structural problems, we have had nothing. It has gone very smooth. And the manufacturer for the roofing was out there, said we're having an excellent job done. We will be done by school.
Better knock on wood.
Right, except for that
Okay.
last little section. But, I guess I want to take this time to remind everybody that we're doing the old sections of the roof. We still have the addition that's on the southwest wing and on the northeast wing. Now, those were finished in '04. Now write this down, Chris, because in 2029, you're going to need to be roofing that. And I know I sit here and jest and say that, but we all lose track of time. And we don't take care of setting money aside and doing things. And the reason that we're really over the referendum limit to that, if I add the 2 years that I'm doing the phases, I end up with a referendum limit of about $1.3 million. This roof is 1.44. I'm over the 2-year referendum lit. And if I look at the SBS report that went with the failed referendum, that everybody said, no, you don't have any problems, you shouldn't be spending this money. If I escalate it 4% every year, because it was 1.3, I'm at $1.44 million. So sometimes we are penny wise and pound foolish. So, okay, I have a few more things. Also, I'm not going to start it tonight, but Mr. Young will appreciate this. We're going to start talking about bonding. I've been having some conversations with John Wilcox, and what can Enfield bond? How much should we bond? How much are we bonding? How do we maintain the good bonding rating that we do have? Because there are things, and for me, roofs are things you should pay as you go. I have a really hard time with bonding roofs. And we are going to start, once this roof is done, we'll be starting in facilities the design for the Eli Whitney roof and the Hazardville Memorial roof. And if we have funding, we'll do phase 1 of each of those. Are you gonna give me the 5 minutes?
I think you got Mr. Young beat tonight.
Okay, let's see. Oh, yeah. I'm going to actually request to the mayor that on the September meeting, that facilities bring to you their plan for the possible upgrades to the transfer station. It's something that falls It was enumerated out in this facilities report, and it is something that falls below the referendum limit. And we're also doing the master plan. We have no update on that yet. But I'm also requesting that because of all the controversy with not having enough money to do the Henry Barnard and the suggestion of what we could do to get before Mr. Wilcox found this extra money with the additional grand list, there was a use of the glass block that made me cringe. And so I went to visit all the schools. And if you go to the Henry Barnard School, we've encapsulated deteriorating glass block with plywood on either side. We've done the same exercise at the Eli Whitney. And at the Parkman, we've replaced it with CMU. So I would like to see somebody add that to their list, Donald. You out there don't come to these meetings and stay the whole time. Let's get rid of the deteriorated block that's on the outside and replace it with CMU. It's not structural. It's being held up by steel, so you can just pull that glass out and do whatever you want to do. So, trying to do my homework here. Let's see. Oh, I'm going to read Mike's favorite thing now. I'm going to make a motion to suspend the rules and move items E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, and Q to miscellaneous and proceed to vote.
Motion made to suspend the rules. Seconded by Counselor Sakal. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none by show of hands, all those in favor? Opposed, abstentions? We have 7 in favor, 0 against.
And I have one more thing I want to read, and it's from the PAR, and it's the sewer usage fee. It says, since March 2018, the tax division has referred 469 delinquent sewer accounts totaling $820,003 to the state marshal for collection, and as of July 25th, we have collected $753,952.
Wow.
So read the PAR. There's good news in there. Everybody's working really hard. And sorry I talked so much.
I'm tired. Anyone else?
Just not sorry.
That was good. That was good.
Nice try.
I'm retired, now, Gina. I have time on my hands.
So I don't mean to make light of it, but I'm smarter than I look. I got someone to drive a truck with me down to Maple Street. That shows how smart I am. But I know we'll address under manager meeting comments real quick on Maple Street, so I'll leave that for now. I'll be quick. Also, Mr. Walsh, I think, Chris, and maybe this is under manager communications, but I know we plan on giving a pretty good presentation. Okay, I'll let you take care of that as well, sort of address some of his concerns. Again, Mr. Young, great. I mean, it's great to see folks come up and give us real ideas. I think his idea, and he assessed her with an intern, is fantastic. We have a lot of properties now for sale being turned over in town. That'd be a great idea to send if someone's new, even if we don't know if they're coming in out of town, I get, but why not make that part of the, include a letter saying, basically what he said, that's a great idea to help keep the folks who are moving to town who aren't changing over to a Connecticut registration. So I know that's an issue we've talked about, and I know it's one of passions of Ed's.
Yeah.
That we do see a lot of folks living in town with out-of-state, registrations. I mean, it's maybe something we can talk about through general governance or something else, because Donna just read, again, there's some great news, what we started in governance about a year ago about going back and collecting, folks who haven't paid their sewer bill, and of course, some of the other back taxes that we're going after. So this might not be a bad idea through there. I know we're going to be hopefully getting a presentation on some of the back car taxes that we've been kind of being a little more aggressive going after. I think this would be that's a great idea. And this is my opinion, maybe something we should talk through governance at the next governance meeting. So again, keep the ideas coming, they're great. I'll be very quick. I just want to give a real quick nod to, again, some corporate partners in town. Again, we got great corporate partners in town. To the Spazzarini Company and Garden Dream for, again, working together to help, again, if you go out there, beautiful overlay of their property, work together to minimize the dust flying across their property into the neighbor's yard. I mean, Spazzarini stepped up, dropped off some millings. Councilor Bosco worked with them, and Garden Dream did a great job. They're spraying their property. And again, just those little things matter in a neighborhood. So again, corporate partners being good neighbors with the neighbors across the street. Just want to recognize them that they at least tried to do something. Again, so second thing, and I just had to, I have to admit, it was very, very, I I had the honor of going over to get to hear the story about Max Moran, the young boy who died of, and I apologize, Nieman's Pick type C. If you read up on that very just terrible disease where basically his metabolism works against cholesterol, if I do it right, that basically shuts down his system. He passed away, I think, less than a year ago. And I just want to thank the Moose Lodge for having it, Frank Silva, and again, Mr. Frank Thompson, the grandfather, for just taking 10 minutes out of his time to tell me his story. I mean, I appreciate the fact he was willing to talk to me. So well done. We had our first meeting of the new Mental Health and Wellness Committee in town. It's a combination of the schools, the board, the town council, the police, multiple different organizations in town, where again, we're trying to remind people that we are taking the mental health seriously. We're trying to be open about the conversations. We want people to be honest about it. And I think really the things we're going to come up with some different things. But, especially kids, you got to talk. Got to talk to your parents, got to talk to your teachers, got to talk to your coaches, got to talk to any mentors you may have. Don't let it build up inside. I mean, especially in light of some of the things that have been going on around the country. Talk to somebody. And we're working on some sort of a theme where, again, it's hopefully going to become part of our culture, which is what, as the mayor, I'm committed to making it part of our culture, where, again, we don't want people afraid to talk about their issues. I mean, I understand it's uncomfortable, it can be. I understand it may be impersonal. I understand maybe it's embarrassing. But we'd rather be able to talk to people and try to solve it as opposed to let it linger and then it turns into something unfortunate. And then it hurts many people, not just the individual. So again, great news. We kicked that off on Wednesday. So we're really excited about it. We're hoping to be able to, make it part of the town culture. That Enfield's already a great town. Now we're going to make it, again, mental health through children and eventually with adults is really. Again, we're not going to afraid to have those conversations that need to be had to help somebody out. So I just want to kind of put that out there because we do a great job with social services in town, both through the schools and through the town of Enfield. And I think people should be proud of it. I know we talk about a lot about what your taxpayers get you, your tax dollars get you, but I can tell you we have a fantastic social services program in this town. And it does do a lot of good for all ages, from kids who are 0 to for adults who are over 99. That's what we're trying to do in this town. So I'll stop there. I think that's all I have. I know I want to be quicker than the deputy mayor tonight, and so I will. I'll stop. Move on to item 9, town manager report.
All right. Well, there were quite a few referrals, so if I miss anything, please remind me. First, we'll go to the PAR report. I echo the sentiment of Councilor Susak. There is a lot of valuable information there, and I endorse it to everybody. It is a report on projects and activities throughout the town by every department, and it's updated on a monthly basis. I would direct people to mine because you may be getting questions in regard to we did change to make it user-friendly and understandable, the ready-to-serve charge under the billing this time around to say it's a base charge. But also there was a change. Some of the cleanup that the council did in amendments were implemented in this billing. One of the things that may be confusing to folks is that when they get it, it says it's due, but there still is a grace period. So we did an explanation under our PAR. So if you get any questions, you could refer people there. I'm sure it will be coming up and you'll be getting some questions on the new bill. Any other questions or any questions on the PAR?
Anyone have any questions for the town manager?
All right, I probably won't go in order.
Chris, just real quick, when will the road diet be before us?
Those individuals from the state are coming in September. I don't have in front of me which meeting, but they had agreed to come like they did on the South River Street Bridge.
Make sure we give out plenty of press and leeway to people who are very interested in that.
All right, we'll do another press release before that.
Sorry, Councilor Muller had a question. Sorry, Chris, go ahead.
Sure.
Is there an update on the EMS accounts receivable?
I'd have to check with John,
Okay.
and I've asked for that. Some of that was implemented, and it'll take a couple of months, and we'll have a report. But they did send quite a few delinquent accounts for out-of-town residents, so I think we're going to see a lot of activity in that as well.
Excellent, thank you.
But by the time we passed the resolution, they got it implemented and sent it out, I probably think that'll probably be something more at the end of, probably in the fall. We'll have some, empirical data on that. And in regard to all the referrals for Public Works, usually I give them and pass them all over your inquiries, but because Mr. Nunes is here, so graciously stayed, he won't make that mistake again. He will write those down, and we'll follow up on them. To Mr. Tkacs's point, I concur. I will just say two things. One, those issues he had talked to me earlier in the week that he brought up tonight about the lights and the exit ramps, Mr. Nunes is making contact with the state, or already has. And I agree. I kind of think over the last year and a half being here, I think in some ways Enfield has been a bit of a forgotten territory up here by the state. But I will assure you and our residents that we've made real efforts and outreach to commissioners and departments of the state in regard to our train station, in regard to projects that we have here. The Scantic River officials came today. I think we've had a very healthy response from the state, and we're continuing those efforts to let them know that we're still here. And I will have to tell you, though, as well, you can't get a call back if you don't make the call in the first place. So we've been very, I'll say, I don't want to use the word aggressive, but I'll say we've been very insistent. Proactive. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, in letting Hartford know that we're here. And I think our state reps and our senator have assisted us, and our federal representatives are aware that we're very interested in Awake, and we're asking for them to assist us in state and federal projects again. I'll just tell you in regard to the referendum question and the CIP and how much we can spend and the charter. I used to be the fella sitting here telling the manager no when he was asking all the questions like I'm asking them, and I can assure the residents on Maple that we're aware of the situation. We are going out there to meet with Longmeadow on Wednesday. I'd like nothing more, and I would have said, do it. Go out there and issue the repairs. And it's a lot more frustrating sitting here to want to get things done and get slowed down because of legal consequences and other issues that are brought to my attention that tell us if we do it that we could run afoul of law. So we're going to work with the town attorney. I've met with the town attorney. She's out of state right now, but I can assure you that there will be a long-range solution that we've been discussing and short-range. And I have been out there. Kosh has been out there, so we understand your plight, and we see how bad it is, and we know you need relief sooner than later. So we're very conscious of that, and we're not going to ignore it, and we're going to come up with a solution for you. So you can come to these meetings, or you can reach out as you have. I'm glad the mayor and representatives of the council went out. Everybody's concerned. It's just that we've been told in some circumstances, because of the legality of it being out of town, that we had to stop and wait and regroup. So that's what we're doing, but we haven't forgotten you, and we're going to help you. In regard to the charter, Mr. Young's observations, I know we had some of this information, and John Wilcox, I sent it to the whole council, his response as to the thresholds and the amounts. I'll just say that, we have to be cautious, and I understand, again, Donna's frustration. I'd love to go out and do all these roofs, and the heck with the charter. Unfortunately, again, I'm not vilifying the town attorney, but heck, she's not here, so we'll blame Mark. But, the charter is very specific about how much we can spend, and it's one of the few areas of the charter where they actually put a penalty with it if you violate it, and it's very dire, so we have to be cautious of that. I will just say in regard to Bob's comment, at the last Charter Review Commission, I was one of the town liaisons, so I sat there and observed and helped give information. It was not my recommendation because it wasn't my role in regard to raising the limit that we can spend before you go to referendum to $1 million. But as I said at a couple of past meetings that Bob's referring to, that was a suggestion, and it was not adopted by the Charter Revision Commission, so it didn't go to the voters. So that's what we have, the current 0.002% of the grand list. And there's different ways to get to the final number. John is cautious. He is conservative because clearly to violate the charter is very serious, up into including, and I don't want to be dramatic, but there are criminal penalties for it. So we try to be conservative. John has worked with our bond counsel and with the town attorney and with our auditors to make sure that we are doing it properly. Because for a few dollars more, it isn't worth the penalties if you make a mistake. And really, the charter doesn't care if it was an accident. If you exceed it, we can be personally responsible for it, and also the employees and members of the council. I just have to tell you, we do like to be creative. We listen to all of the suggestions. But I'll tell you, those people who have been and used creative accounting in a lot of towns and cities, they now wear orange jumpsuits in federal prison. So that term probably isn't as...
You got away with it.
Well, perhaps, but I don't like the color orange, so we're very prudent and we're very fiscally responsible. So we're listening, but we're going to make sure we don't run afoul of the charter or that any of you do. What others?
Could you highlight for everyone, I know it's been in the paper, but the bond rate, how important
Well,
what we just,
no,
what
I
you
think
just
that-
went with John. So, I mean, these are important things to reiterate.
Yes.
To what people are asking about how we're spending
Thank you,
money.
and that's in the PAR report as well. Standard & Poor's Global, which are nationally recognized for bond ratings, had come in and they do an assessment of the town top to bottom, and I think, I was close saying it's a snapshot of the town right before and what the future will hold, because before they give you a rating, they want to make sure you're solid, because when we do this, it's very interesting. Going out to bonds, we just did $17 million and $22 million for the three main large projects, JFK, the water pollution control will be coming up, but also for the high school. And, we're going out around the country to the top banks, and they have to, under a matter of law, they rely on those ratings to see what risk there is and our ability to repay. So very proud, and the council should be proud, because they remark on the good stewardship and the management of the town over the last year in assessing their ratings. And I'll tell you also, they made some recommendations that we're going to implement and indicated in their report going forward that they would even consider if we stay on this path and this trajectory and a strong economy that Enfield has and the projects that we're doing, that they might even raise it. So again, we're always looking to attain a higher rating and do better. But I'm very proud, and the council should be. And I think that's, it's an independent assessment of the town. It's not me telling you or the finance director. We have auditors that come in, but when, Standard & Poor's Global comes in that does this around the world and says you're running your town very well, I think that's important for our citizens to know. And I think probably then I will address the chief's comments of earlier. I think, it's true. The most important and the first and foremost job of government, especially local, is the protection of our citizens. Good education, our roads, all of the other concerns are obviously important, but if we don't keep our people safe, you don't reach those issues. So this council has always taken that seriously. When Carl was the chief, he did. And in regard to the most recent tragedies, as the chief said, we have for a dozen years implemented what we believe are the state-of-the-art, the cutting-edge practices in law enforcement for our community to keep us safe from those type of threats. The current chief has continued those. When Carl and he had mentioned the national symposium we went to in Washington on school safety, it was an eye-opener. And I used to be much more, being an attorney, don't talk about anything. Well, the experts nationally say do talk about the good things you're doing and the protections and the policies and the resources you have, because it's a deterrent, and you should let the citizens know. Even to the point, when we came back, we came to the council and we said, and you hear this all the time, it's very difficult for an officer armed with a pistol with a short range to outclass a gunman with a rifle. So we came back and the council supported. We purchased rifles in the town. We have town-owned rifles. At the end of the chief's tenure, he extended that to allow officers to bring their personal weapons, their long rifles in. We train them. It has to be according to our specifics, but they're more comfortable with those. And I will tell you, 40 officers of the Enfield Police Department bring to work patrol rifles. And these are the assault-type rifles that we're saying that the military and law enforcement should have. And we have those on our streets at every hour of the day throughout this town to keep our people safe. Some of the other things, and I asked the chief this morning just to give you an outline of the 6 top projects that we've done over the last years that the chief started, that this chief has continued. We brought in the Blue Line trailer, which is an expense. It's training to officers to do under stress in a trailer where they shoot live rounds. Under lighting conditions, under stress, because we don't get enough training. And when officers make a mistake, it's usually because they didn't have an opportunity to train enough. They only go and qualify once a year. So we put those resources in. That's come for many, many years. The council supported it, and we did it again this year. We've done active shooter. I came to the council earlier in the year before these 2 episodes. We asked for overtime, over $10,000, to again put all of our officers, all of our almost 95 officers, through active shooter training, classroom scenarios, and then out drills and shooting. We're almost all the way through that phase. And again, you can't do enough training in regard for our officers to be prepared for these type of incidents. We've also done membership in the CREST, which is the rapid response. It's our SWAT team, and we have 5 officers who are members of that, and they, at any given day, are on duty as well. We can bring that resource in to address this type of situation, but we also have officers trained to do it in-house, 5 of them with all of that equipment that they carry with them in their cruisers. And lastly, as you know, at the last council meeting, the council approved an enhanced school resource officer program for this fall, and I would say not a minute too soon. given recent events. We won't get in and delve into the details, but this council committed an additional $250,000 of funding to have additional officers to be able to safeguard our children in our schools when they open August 28th. I'm confident and optimistic that the board will accept that offer when they reconvene at the end of August. So this is a threat that is constant. We can never let our guard down. We must be vigilant. There are lulls and there are peaks, but it is a threat, and I think obviously nationally people grapple with how we're going to deal with this. But I can tell you, and again, speaking with the chief today and the former chief, that if you said to us today, what more can we spend? What other programs can we employ? What more can we do? I think we're doing everything that we possibly can to keep our citizenry safe with current resources and technologies. So I'd like to thank the council, because that's always come with an economic cost, and this council and previous councils have always unanimously supported those requests. So I thank you.
Any questions for Chris? Chris, just two quick things. You mentioned a Blue Line trailer. It would be great at some point if we could actually get that, to be able to show that to the, I mean, the video obviously of it, not the actual physical training, so people understand, when, unfortunately, if a shooting occurs, the split-second decision folks are making, and maybe take some of the initial instant outrage that someone's doing it on purpose for whatever reasons may be, to give people an understanding of those split-second decisions. And it would be a great, in my opinion, a great way of educating the public on really what happens in one of those situations. I don't know if there's a way we could do it through, again, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, that's not something we would be in a position to produce, but we can certainly reach out to Blue Line to see if they have informational videos that we could ask and put it on our website.
Mr. Mayor, they also have on YouTube, if you were to put Blue Line trailer shoot, don't shoot scenarios, you could actually see them pretty good there.
Could we do it through ETV, or no?
I think so, and I think the value of it is that it's not just marksmanship, it's judgment.
Right.
And we have to train both, because when a shooting happens and it didn't go right, the cost far outweighs what it would cost us for our Blue Line.
I know
trailer.
members of the council went to the training. I know Deputy Mayor, I did. I think
Mr. Denny
did as
has
well.
in the past.
Right, and it's eye-opening when it's easy to be a Monday morning quarterback after these things. When you see these split-seconds decisions, I mean, how would we all react? I think if you're honest about it when you see this, that's why I think it'd be great if we could figure out a way of getting it on ETV, or something where people can actually see it. And so the public becomes more educated, and we certainly heard and I think that's the best way of doing it. And the last thing, I think, to Mr. Walsh's question, when do we plan on bringing Donald for the road? So some of the things, to people know exactly how much they spent, and to the question of, can we do some things differently as we get ready for the final road referendum, at least from the initial 100, that's where I know Donald's going to make a presentation in September.
He's coming in September, and he'll be prepared to give a whole history of the roads projects from 2000 forward, where we were, where we are, where we hope to go. And he certainly will always be amenable to listening to ideas. I will just say, as Joey, a lot of ideas come forward, and you know what? We have looked at them, and it's good to have the council people on the council go back far enough to understand that when these council or previous councils have heard ideas, we do try to look into them or implement them. So sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. And in regard to what Mr. Walsh recommended, maybe they don't work on some of the roads, but perhaps they would on some others. Right. So it's still something that we should consider, and we do appreciate all of the ideas that come forward, and we are listening. And wherever we can save money or do better, we'd like to do that.
Item 10, Town Attorney Report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors. I have a brief report for you. This is on it's an update on the Nutmeg Solar Farm. We received a letter from the Siting Council. Eversource has submitted an application to the Siting Council. They're going to be modifying the Skidco substation on Bailey Road, I assume to accept the energy from the solar farm. They're also going to be relocating an electronic transmission line that terminates at the substation, and they're going to construct a 330-foot underground transmission line from Nutmeg Solar's property to the substation. We have until the middle of August if we want to submit any comments, and the Siting Council expects to have a decision by, I believe, the end of December or January.
Any questions for the Town Attorney?
On the opioid, There's going to be a hearing in federal court tomorrow morning. This is in Ohio. And I believe one of the attorneys from Scott & Scott will be here. I think it's either the first or second meeting in September to brief the council in executive session on the status of that lawsuit right now. So I'm sure they can give you a lot more information. Like I said, it's still pending litigation.
I had seen that today, and I thought you'd want to be advised. And I will just tell you, it's interesting because there's a lot of questions about it. I'm glad that we are participating in the litigation, and there's always questions of responsibility. Was it the doctors? Was it the companies? Who's responsible?
Federal government
The federal
plays into
government.
this as well.
But I'll tell you, perhaps somebody should have known something when you look at the statistic that was released this morning, that in Connecticut, we have under 3 million people. And between 2006 and 2012, they wrote 675 million prescriptions for opioids. So you know what? I'll leave it at that.
I agree. Any questions for the town attorney? Moving on to item 11, report of any special committees. Do we have any reports? Councilor Muller.
JFK building update. The state grant to renovate JFK has been approved. The renovation will enable our town to offer our children the best education possible, an environment that meets their needs. Shovels hit the ground April 2020, and we hope to be completed August of 2022.
Great news. Anyone else? That's it. Moving on to item 12, old business. On page 1, appointments A, 1, 2, and 3, there are none. Moving on to the top of page 4, under old business, appointments 4 and 5, there are none. No, sorry, I'm 5. Do I have a motion to remove item, which is the Enfield Cultural Arts vacancy, off the table?
So move on.
By Deputy Mayor Suzak. Second by Councilor Muller to remove item 5, Enfield Cultural Arts, off the table. All those in favor by show of hands? Opposed, abstentions, 8 in favor, 0 against. Do I have a nomination for Enfield Cultural Arts? Deputy Mayor Suzak.
I'd like to nominate Emily A. Clifford.
We have a nomination. And we have a second by Councilor Sakala.
Move to close.
I have a motion to close by Deputy Mayor Suzak. Second by Councilor Muller. All those in favor of closing nominations by a show of hands? Opposed, abstentions, 8 in favor, 0 against. On the main motion, do we have any more discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Counselor Sferrazza.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
Emily Clifford.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
Emily Clifford?
Counselor Denny.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
There's one. 8 in favor, none against.
Items 6 through 14, there are none. Under old business, appointments. Moving on to item B, appointments by the town manager, 1 and 2 on page 2. You have none. On page 3, items 3 through 16, appointments under town manager. There are none. Moving to the top of page 4, again, under the town manager, item B, appointments, item 17, there is none. Item C, appointments, P&Z Commission appointed, council approved, there are none. Item D, discussion of school roofs remains tabled, I assume. Item 13, under new business, consent agenda, we have none. Item A. Moving on to item B, appointments, town council approved. Item 1, North Central Health District Board of Directors, Enfield Representative, we have a vacancy. Do I have a nomination? Deputy Mayor Suzak.
I'd like to nominate Dawn Hunt.
We have a nomination, seconded by Councilor Muller.
Move to close.
By Deputy Mayor Suzak, seconded by Councilor Sferrazza. All those in favor of closing nominations by a show of hands? Opposed? 8 in favor, 0 against. Any discussion on the main motion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Counselor Sferrazza.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
Dawn Hunt.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
Dawn Hunt?
Counselor Denny.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
8 in favor, none against, and no abstention.
Item B2, another appointment remains on the table. Item C, appointments, town manager appointed, council approved, there are none. Item D, appointments, P&Z Commission appointed, council approved, again, there are none. Items for discussion, there's no consent agenda on item A. Item B, there's no council appointments. Item C, there's still no manager appointments. Item D, there is, no P&Z Commission appointed, council approved. The remaining items have all been moved to miscellaneous. Item 15, miscellaneous. First item for discussion. Item E, resolution adopted a senior center resident policy. Resolved that the town council does hereby adopt the senior center residency policy submitted on June 21st, 2019 by Jason Neely, the library director. By Councilor Sakala, seconded by Councilor Denny.
Mary Keller is here to answer any questions. We've had a longstanding policy, but it had not been adopted by the council, so they wanted to bring it forward to codify it and make it official, and Mary is available if you have
Welcome,
any
Mary.
questions.
Anything you want to add? I know you've been sitting patiently. If you want to add anything?
We're just using the policy that they've had in place but hasn't been formalized, and it is in line with what Recreation does, so we just updated both of them and then making both of them formal.
So basically charging for out-of-state folks,
So
out of town, excuse me.
residents get first priority at programs at the initial registration date. A week later, non-residents, then if there's space available, have the ability to register for programs, and they will be charged 25% surcharge added onto the
Which is
individual
consistent with
cost.
our other programs.
Correct.
Right. Any questions for Mary?
Yeah, just one thing.
Councilor Denny.
So everything basically was the same as it always has been, except we never approved
Correct.
formally. It's always been that type of thing, right? Okay.
Glad you're getting in writing. Deputy Mayor Suzak.
So this is just for the programs, it's not for admission?
Correct. There is no admission to the senior center.
Right, even for non-residents?
Correct.
Thank you.
Councilor Sferrazza.
Mayor, I'm just curious, what percentage of our programs are out-of-town or out-of-state residents? Do you know what percentage utilize our programs?
I don't know those numbers off the top of my head, but I can get them for you.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for Mary? Would be great if you came back at some point, maybe for the winter, and talk about how pickleball has exploded. I think it's great for
We
people.
would be happy to.
It's amazing how that has expanded, so I think it's great. Some of the things, again, as we're talking about, some of the things we're doing with recreation, we're thinking a little differently than we always have, not having 100 tennis courts that no one uses, not having 100 basketball courts that no one uses. We're actually trying to figure out what the residents want to play. So I think it's great that you folks are, I know, it's amazing how much I hear about pickleball now. I know Deputy Mayor Suzak is the pickleball expert here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even know what a pickleball looks like.
It's like a pickleball. Exactly how it sounds. Any other questions? Thank you. You're going to sit there for the next one. All right. Roll call, please.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Counselor Sferrazza.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Bosco is out. Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
And Mayor Ludwig.
4.
There's 7 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
Moving on to item F, under miscellaneous, resolution adopting and updating recreation residency policy. Resolved that the town council does hereby adopt the updated recreation residency policy submitted on June 21st, 2019 by Jason Neely, the library director. By Councilor Muller. Seconded by Councilor Denny. Any highlights? I know it's pretty much similar to what we just, yeah?
It's the same thing. It just eliminates parts of the policy that aren't in effect anymore.
Any questions? Thank you. Roll call, please.
Counselor Muller. 4. Counselor Sferrazza.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Bosco is still out. Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
There's 7 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Thank you, Mary. Moving on to item G under miscellaneous, resolution waiving the bid requirements for the Enfield Traffic Circulation Improvement Study. Whereas the town of Enfield desires to move forward with the Enfield Traffic Circulation Improvement Study surrounding the Enfield Square Mall area, including routes 190 and 220. Whereas CROG is the only entity offering this corridor study grant, and a match is required. Now therefore be it resolved in accordance with Chapter 5, Section 8, Paragraph D of the Enfield Town Charter, the Enfield Town Council does hereby determine that it is against the best interest of the town to require competitive bidding for the Enfield Traffic Circulation Improvement Study surrounding the Enfield Square Mall area, including routes 190 and 220, submitted on August 5th, 2019 by the Director of Development Services, Lori Witten. By Councilor Muller.
Second.
By Deputy Mayor Suzak.
Mr. Mayor, GHI are all the same item. Basically, Lori is here to discuss it. This is our matching amount does exceed charter. There was a question whether or not we actually had to have a waiver, but we, again, want to err on the side of caution, so we came before you. And CROG basically is the only game in town, so that's the reason we're doing it. But Lori can give you a brief assessment of what this is about.
Right.
Welcome, Laurie.
Good evening. This is basically a study that is sponsored by CROG, Capital Region Council of Governments, and the Department of Transportation. The plannings for this started over a year ago, so I'm not sure where it actually began, but the monies have finally been allocated. It's basically for a traffic circulation and improvement study for Route 220 and 190. It will be along Hazard Avenue, basically from Route 5 to North Maple Street, and then again on Route 220 from Route 5 to George Washington intersection. They'll be studying about 28 intersections specifically. This will last for about an 18-month study. They really are looking at trying to improve safety and alleviate congestion, identify opportunities for multimodal transportation, identify deficiencies, how to accommodate growth, especially around the mall area, and strategize for implementation, which would include identifying funding sources that would be available at the time. So we have asked for a bid waiver. Again, this is a CROG study. There is a matching fund that is required to get the money. It actually ends up being 8.5% instead of the standard 10 because of the way the monies came into the CROG hands. And then we need a request to transfer the funds from Development Services. And then we need authorization for the town manager to sign the agreement.
Any questions? Councilor Denny.
Is this similar to, I know it's different, but wasn't this similar? Didn't we have a plan at one time, the town or someone, to kind of connect all our shopping malls together? Was that something similar to what this is about?
I unfortunately am unaware of that at this time.
Chris?
Was it recent or maybe 10 years
Not
ago?
sure if
or?
it was recent or not, but I somewhere in the back of my mind, I recall some kind of connection between the mall, where whatever you want to call it, where Chick-fil-A is now, all of those, and some kind of a connecting. I know we have connecting streets now that connect them, but some kind of a different plan. I recall there was something going on. I'm not sure.
I think you're right, yeah.
Am I right?
I think so, yeah.
So that's not what this is at all. This is to get the congestion off of. Or
Right,
do
it's to
something
alleviate
about
the traffic
190
issues.
and 220.
So they'll be looking at
His suggestion
intersections.
actually would do that. I mean,
Yeah, right, exactly. You know, at somewhere along the line there was something, right?
I agree.
Some type of study to kind of make not just Freshwater Boulevard and Palumbo Drive the access routes, but something that would connect all our.
I vaguely remember seeing some plan that showed sort of like a roadway going through all of it.
Yes.
And I think that may have been the, I don't know about the study, but I think it may have been the beginnings of the TIF project for the Midtown Enfield. But again, I wasn't here, so I really can't speak to
This
it.
goes back longer than what we were talking about TIF, correct?
Yeah. Well, I'm saying that because I remember
Krog-
seeing that in the TIF
And the other question I have
documents.
is Krog's the only game in town? Is that what you said?
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay.
They're the ones offering the money.
So we really don't have a choice. I hate bid waivers, but
It's kind of one of those things. It fell just over that threshold. So we just wanted, as the town manager said, to err on the side of caution.
Council Sferrazza.
Thank you.
I apologize if it was stated, but I just want everyone to be clear. This is about a $260,000 project from the federal government, requires matching. I didn't hear the figure for Enfield, but it looks like $21,715 is all we're going to expend on this, correct?
That would be correct.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Deputy Mayor Suzak?
Okay, so I have a question because does this actually go through the whole intersection of North Maple to include the village of Hazardville where we have a lot of ancillary driver, a lot of truck activity.
Yeah.
Because really, if anybody drives on 190, I mean, the traffic as you get further out towards Skidco is it's horrendous. It's just horrendous. You can be, sitting for 5 lights.
And that's why trucks are going down North Road. That's why, because the GPS is telling them to go down there. And this weekend I saw one of these gargantuan trucks try to do that little that S turn.
By the cemetery.
Yeah.
I could always investigate whether or not they would be willing to go further.
That would really help
I don't
that
know
village. It would actually be nice if it went to both villages. It did
so basically the
Hazardville
full
Village,
east-west.
and it did the
I'm sorry.
Skidco Village.
Yeah.
Because we really, we get a lot of complaints about people and they come down Taylor Road and go across to Skidco Road. So they miss the 2 lights and get on Broadbrook. So there's a lot of stuff going on that we have a lot of through traffic, and we may have even more through traffic. Thanks, Lori.
They may be able to broaden the scope of the study, but I'd have to ask about it.
I mean, if they ever did a traffic study, to see how long people are sitting at that light, and I go around all those major roads.
Any other questions? Too quick, I don't mean to bring up a sore subject, but again, I saw the truck pulling out of North Road, knowing where their GPS is sending them from Massachusetts. And a lot of folks in Massachusetts shop here. So I'm glad we're looking at growth, because if you drive down Elm Street coming to here, it takes a while to get here through all the lights. There's now, before we actually redevelop the mall, which we know we're working to get it done pretty quickly with the TIF district, I think to Ed's point, I think we need to hopefully think a little differently. And again, I'm a big fan, because I want us to do a trolley. I know that's probably not it, but we should be thinking about that for the Christmas months, where, again, we do something different than Manchester. People want to shop here. We have to think already when that mall opens and we do whatever we're doing, the traffic's going to get worse. We have the prisons where they know off the highway they got to get there quickly. And I think the other, and I hate to bring up a sore subject, but if the tolls do go in, we have to think of that as well, because there's going to be a lot of traffic coming by the prison. Taylor Road is just redone. It's beautiful. And I'm already hearing from people in Massachusetts saying that's where they're coming into Enfield. Already hearing from those folks. So I think those are things we have to think about if we're going to do this study. If it doesn't come in, great. But I think that's the next 3 to 4 years, what we're going to be dealing with Elm Street, which is a good thing because we're developing it. But the bad thing is if people are sitting in traffic, they're not going to shop here. They're going to go somewhere else. That's why people don't like to go to Holyoke. That's why people are getting tired of Manchester. So, those are the things we have to think of from an economic development standpoint when we're doing these studies, is what's going to happen next. Yeah, I agree. I'm a big fan of the trolley, on record. I'm a big fan. I will drive it too, Laura. I will do it for the Christmas months.
No, those are very valid points.
I think that's what I'm a little bit worried about, because you've seen it now. And again, you can see the GPS won't send those trucks coming through the prison all the way to Hazard Ave. They're going to come down Brainerd, and they're going to come down Shaker, and they're going to come down North Road. And then again, I think anyone who's been driving, and I know we've heard some complaints on North Road, that is the one road that has no chance of handling those big trucks. I'm not saying Brainerd will, and I'm not trying to, please don't take it the wrong way for folks who live on Brainerd, but North Road is nothing built like Brainerd and certainly Shaker or Elm is. So I think that's things we have to think about looking forward, because I think it's already happening, and it's unfortunately probably going to get, it's a good thing, bad thing, because again, people want to shop here, which is what we're trying to do.
Right.
But then the bad thing is when the tractor trailers are coming down, how do we control that? And I know that's a difficult, because we don't technically by law have a right to control it, which is of course the other issue. But again, thank you. I think that's all I have. Any other further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Counselor Sferrazza.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
Counselor Sakala. 4. Counselor Denny.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
8 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
So these two, again, are with G that Lori just described, request to transfer funds of Development Services Traffic Circulation Improvement Study of $21,715. Again, resolved in accordance with Chapter 6, Section 8F of the Town Charter, the following transfers hereby made. To Development Services from other professional services of $21,715 from non-departmental charges, the contingency account, $21,715. It's certified that the above funds are available on July 29, 2019 by John Wilcox, the Director of Finance, approved by Christopher Bronson, Town Manager on 8/1/2019. Councilor Muller? Seconded by Councilor Sakala. This is sort of the continuation to Carl's question. Any other questions for Lori? Roll call, please.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Counselor Sferrazza.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak. 4. Counselor Ungary. 4. Counselor Bosco. 4. Counselor Sakala. 4. Counselor Denny.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
There's 8 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
It's sort of the trilogy, as Lori explained. Item I, resolution authorizing the town manager to enter an agreement with the Capital Region Council of Governments for the Traffic Circulation Improvement Study. Resolved that the town manager, Christopher W. Bronson, is authorized to enter an agreement in the name and on behalf of the town of Enfield with CROG for a traffic circulation improvement study surrounding the town square area, including routes 190 and 220, subject to review and approval by the town attorney, submitted on July 29, 2019 by the by the Development Services Department. By Councilor Muller. Seconded by Councilor Sakala. Again, this is the final, as Lori mentioned. Now, we're authorizing Chris to sign the agreement. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Counselor Sferrazza.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
Counselor Sakala. 4. Counselor Denny.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
There's 8 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
Thank you, Lori. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, you have more?
I'm
Oh,
going to be here for
all
a
right.
little while.
Would you just turn the mic over?
Well, she was on vacation, so I
Oh, there you
figured
go.
she's going to have to come back and earn her keep.
Item J, resolution referring again, under miscellaneous, I apologize. Item J, resolution referring the proposed modifications of parking of Stowe Early Learning Center to Planning and Zoning. Whereas the town of Enfield is working in conjunction with the Enfield Board of Education to make improvements at the Stowe Early Learning Center in order to accommodate the move of Head Start program into the building at the start of the new school year. Whereas there is a need for additional parking that will be exaggerated. Am I saying the right word here?
Exacerbated.
Thank you. What Gina said, by additional incoming students and staff. See, English is not my first language. Whereas the council must refer to proposed modification to the Planning and Zoning Committee for report in conformance with the requirements of Connecticut General Statute 8-24. Now therefore be it resolved that the proposed modification of parking at the Stowe Early Learning Center is referred to the Planning and Zoning Commission in conformance with the requirements of the Connecticut General Statute 824, prepared by the Town Manager's Office on July 26, 2019. By Councilor Muller.
Second.
By Councilor Sakala. Whew, it's been a while. I think I'm a little off my game tonight. Lori.
You did get that name right.
I did. So I'm 1 for 1.
Yeah, there you go. So this is basically just an 824 referral to, because of the capital improvements that are occurring over at Stowe. Staff has been working diligently to try to get the plans prepared with the great help from Donald Nunes, who did all of the drafting. We worked together to do the design, and the Planning and Zoning Commission did not like this coming before them as just an administrative approval, so they wanted to see it with a public hearing, which was scheduled for this Thursday night. So the 824 will be, and the site plan approval will be reviewed this Thursday.
Any questions for Lori? Can I ask a general question? If I apologize if it's out of, for administrative review, who controls that? Do we as the council set the rules?
No, the administrative review is the planning and zoning
I know.
process. So that's, the rules are set by the...
State statute?
By the Planning and Zoning Commission. The 824 is a state statute requiring the referral from the council to the Planning and Zoning Commission for any improvements. This kind of didn't quite fall within that area. It's a little bit outside of the major capital improvements, but again, err with caution.
Okay.
We decided we'd just make sure that it was covered.
Okay, thank you. Any other further questions? Roll call, please.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Counselor Sferrazza.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
There's 8 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Thank you. You still up? All right. Item K, resolution supporting participation in Sustainable Connecticut Municipal Certification Program. Whereas the Sustainable Connecticut is a comprehensive statewide action-oriented volunteer certification program built by and for municipalities promoting the health and well-being of current and future residents and respecting the finite capacity of the natural environment. And whereas Sustainable Connecticut is designed to boost local economies and help municipal operations become more efficient, reduce operating costs, and provide grants and additional support to municipalities. Whereas the town of Enfield embraces the ongoing process of greater sustainability, selecting actions it chooses to pursue with the voluntary option provided by Sustainable Connecticut. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Council of Enfield does hereby authorize Jeffrey Lenowitz to serve as Enfield's Sustainable Connecticut contact for the Sustainable Connecticut Municipal Certification process. Authorize him to complete municipal registration on behalf of the town of Enfield, submitted by Lori Witten from the Department of Development Services. By Councilor Muller, by Councilor Sakala. Lori.
Okay, so this is basically a grassroots voluntary program that the state has put together. It's basically a feel-good program to show how the towns or municipalities are moving towards greener energy, climate change, equality, equity planning, public transit, redevelopment of brownfields. So you get points for all of these different action items, and then you get certified. There's a bronze, I think it's like 200 points, and then there's a gold, which may be an additional 200. I don't recall the exact points, but it basically, makes the community look good, and quite honestly, this community looks great because we haven't even registered yet, and we're probably almost at 200 points already. So, I mean, it lets the world know that we care, that you want to have,
Councilor Sferrazza.
So I'm okay with feel-good programs, especially when there's no budget impact to this whatsoever, correct?
No budget
and
impact.
And also, too, if you achieve this, not if, when we achieve it, it's one more marketing tool maybe you have when you're negotiating with businesses that we are that designation, right? I mean, can't hurt.
Exactly. It certainly is an economic development tool to entice people to come here.
Okay.
Councilor Sakala and Deputy Mayor Suzak. All set, call? Yeah.
So I know you say there's no budget impact, but what do we have to do? What does staff have to do? What kind of legwork is there for us to do on this?
Yeah, the next steps would be in the next 90 days, we have to create a committee, which would be the new deputy director, myself, and probably one or two other staff members, or possibly it could be somebody from council, it could be from other land use commissions. And then basically it's this time from staff to just gather the information and certify, and you have to sign up and certify to those action items online with the Sustainable CT.
So no budget impact per se, but there's staff time. And then is there, are you going to have to, or members of this subcommittee or this committee need to go to meetings? Are we going to say are people going to be at conventions and this no budget impact really is going to have a budget impact?
Yeah, no conventions. There might be like a local seminar or something for a couple hours one day here and there.
Okay.
Just for guidance for the program.
Right. These are great things to do, but it
No,
always
we're
comes
very-
it always comes with time.
No, we're always cognizant of that. We're very judicious with the staff's time, and basically this is something that facilities and Donna and also many volunteers were interested in pursuing. And when we looked at it, and now that we're fully staffed after about a year and a few months, we thought it would be appropriate to look at it. And actually, we should get credit for the things we've done, and we've done a lot. And I think it is appropriate because it is recognized. In business communities, the state, partners in state and local government recognize this and look favorably upon it. But it will be subject to their availability. Councilor Sakala. So obviously this isn't going to take precedence over, an economic development project or somebody coming to town. It'll be as time allows. But this first step we thought was a modicum of staff time, and it certainly is something that I think is appropriate and worthwhile to do now.
Great. All right. Thanks.
All set. Deputy Mayor Suzak.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to elaborate on. This actually came last August and we didn't get the resolution in time to do this. This is something that Clean Energy was working on. Clean Energy became part of facilities, and it was something that was done in the background. I think that, although it does take some of the staff time, it's a yardstick to measure. And if you follow how they've set this yardstick up, then people will understand across different communities what each thing means. We really do need to enumerate out the things that we do. So,
And I think another benefit is I think we are recognized for it, and sometimes it makes you eligible for other grants, state and
Right.
federal government. When when a lot of these things they want shovel ready. Well, are you a recognized community? And if you're not, you miss the boat. So I think it's just another thing that we should put that feather in our cap. And it is feel good, but it's important because we're doing very positive steps that do help the environment and also save the community money, and it's healthier for our residents. So it's more than feel good. It's about doing better. And I think that given the small amount of time, and I'm always watching their time, that it's justified.
Yeah.
And when we get to the next phase, we'll do the same assessment.
Anyone else? We just make sure can we say, I know if we qualify what we've done to qualify for bronze, can we make it public and make sure we let people know? And then what it needs to get to gold status. And if you ask me, this would be a great, I'm always looking to get the Economic Development Commission to do a little bit more. This would be a great idea to send it to those folks. To your point on economic development, I think maybe that's the help, that we could use in that committee as opposed to creating a whole nother committee or whatever it may be, because I think we could get a little bit more out of that committee, in my opinion.
Well, and I will recognize them for their industriousness. They are very active. They are very committed. And they were very helpful with the TIF, and I will thank them. And I was remiss in not during the 4th of July Festival. We had a town booth on a Saturday, and we had staff, but also members of the Economic Development Commission who staffed it to share with the public our thoughts on the Higgins Park, the platform for the train station. So they're a very enthusiastic group, and they are a good resource, Mr. Mayor, and we certainly will utilize them.
Perfect. Anything else? Roll call. Did I read the resolution? I did already. Roll call, please.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Counselor Sferrazza.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Denny is out. Mayor Ludwig.
4.
There's 7 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
Moving on to item L, discussion resolution on the miscellaneous 824 referral to the planning zoning for the conveyance of town-owned land on Cottage Green and Garden Street. Whereas the town of Enfield owns the properties located in 46 Cottage Green and 59 Garden Street. Whereas the town intends to market and sell these properties with the services provided by the town's vendor for real estate agency services. Whereas the council must refer this proposed conveyance to the Planning and Zoning Commission for report in conformance with the requirements of Connecticut General Statute 824. Now therefore be it resolved that the proposed conveyance of 46 Cottage Green, 59 Garden Street are referred to the Planning and Zoning Commission in conformance with the requirements of Connecticut General Statute 824, prepared by Nelson Teresio of the Deputy Director of Economic Development on July 11, 2019.
So moved.
By Councilor Muller, by Councilor Sakala.
I'm still here.
Yep.
Nelson is not.
I didn't think so. Yeah.
Basically, the town acquired these, I believe, through foreclosure. We've already got an on-call realtor. In order to move forward with these two parcels, we need to do the 824 referral because this certainly is sale of property. And the town council needs to schedule a public hearing. Since we do have this special meeting coming up, we can have the 824 on the 8th of this month, and then your September 3rd hold the public hearing. So then we can market the different.
And the idea here is we're getting those blighted properties back off the town ownership to hopefully get them flipped and back bringing tax dollars back to the town. That's the whole point of this. This is why it's so important.
Yeah.
I mean, I think these are some of the big things, little things that, again, I know your department's been doing that are so important for those, we hear it all the time, there's an abandoned property in my neighborhood.
Mayor, I'd like to just take the opportunity. We have a top 10 list of blighted properties, and we've taken talk and turned it into action. We meet every 2 weeks. We have for the last year. We bring every discipline, every town agency, and we are turning the talk and the hope and the dream of turning around blighted properties into action. Mark participates. All of our people do on all of the enforcement, and this is a definitive step. We already hired a realtor. We went out to bid. The council approved it, and these are two properties that we took through the process that these will be the first that we actually are able to sell, turn around, return to the tax rolls. And I would like to say that you're absolutely right, Mayor. I work with Lori on a daily basis on attracting, multi, or national corporations that are considering a $85 million project in town, and then the next day we work on this in the neighborhood. So no job is too small or too large, because it's important not only to enhance our tax rolls, but to make all of our neighborhoods beautiful, and we don't want neighbors to have to live next to a home that's blighted and just feel totally helpless, as in many neighborhoods they have for years. So this is the first step. We have a lot more coming. We're very consistent. We're very and I'll use the word not proactive, we're very aggressive in this endeavor, and we'll have a lot of reports, and we're going to have a special meeting probably in 6 months, and we're going to have all the before and after photographs of the properties, and there are many that we've turned around completely to the benefit of that neighborhood and the town, so we take it very seriously.
I know, and I appreciate your staff doing that, because you're right, the big developments are easy, right? The blocking and tackling, which this is so important, because you can't throw the deep bomb without having someone to protect the quarterback, and these things are so important. So I appreciate your staff actually taking the council that we've been talking about this for 2 years, and now implementing our policy into action. That's basically what this is. Councilor Speraza.
Lori, if I'm correct, as you turn onto Cottage Green where the playscape is and you take the corner, this particular property's boarded up, but it's a brick structure with a gate around it, a fence all around it. Is that the house we're looking at there? Because that's been boarded up over a decade.
Yeah, I believe so, but I don't have the pictures right here.
I think Carl's right.
Okay, I echo what the mayor says. To have property like that boarded up for a decade, it just doesn't make any sense at all, so.
Especially when we need more housing.
No, and I think it's to that those brick houses on Cottage Green are some of the rarest houses left in this town. And it's great when we clean it up, because they are beautiful little brick Tudors, for lack of a better word. I'm not a real estate person, but I mean, they used to be, when they were in their day, those were beautiful little buildings in that corner. So I think you're exactly right. Anyone else have any questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Councilor Muller.
4.
Councilor Speraza.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Councilor Ungary.
4.
Councilor Bosco is out. Councilor Sakala. 4. Councilor Denny.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
There's 7 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Under miscellaneous, move into item M, discussion resolution 7-163, resolution setting a public hearing for the proposed conveyance of town-owned land on Cottage Green and Garden Street. Whereas the town of Enfield wishes to convey its properties located at 46 Cottage Green and 59 Garden Street, and whereas the council has referred the proposed proposed conveyances to the Planning and Zoning Commission, also known as the Commission, for a report in conformance with the requirements of Connecticut General Statute 824. Whereas the commission will make a recommendation pursuant to the above referenced statute at its August 8, 2019 special meeting. Whereas under certain conditions, Connecticut General Statute 7-163E requires the legislative body of a municipality to conduct a public hearing prior to the sale, lease, or transfer of real property owned by the municipality. Now therefore be it resolved, the Enfield Town Council does hereby schedule a public hearing regarding the proposed conveyance of 46 Cottage Green and 59 Garden Street to be held on September 3rd, 2019, to begin at 6:50 p.m. in the council chambers of the Enfield Town Hall, which is located at 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut 06082, in order to receive public comments submitted by Nelson Tarisio of the Deputy Director of Economic Development on July 11, 2019. By Councilor Muller.
Second.
By Councilor Denny. This is the public hearing. The only thing in the September 3rd is a Tuesday, correct? Just for the record, so people know
Yes.
Labor Day is the 2nd.
Correct.
I think you're off the hook. Roll call, please.
Councilor Muller.
4.
Councilor Speraza.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak. 4. Councilor Ungary. 4. Councilor Bosco is out. Councilor Sakala.
4.
Councilor Denny.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
There's 7 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
Item under miscellaneous, resolution authorizing the town manager to sign the assistance agreements with the state of Connecticut. Whereas the town has submitted to the state of Connecticut, acting by the Department of Economic Community Development, a survey and planning grant application under the supplemental supplemental certified local government grant program for a non-matching grant and aid in connection with this assistance agreement for a project entitled Historic Resources Inventory. And whereas the town and state of Connecticut, acting by the Department of Economic Community Development, will enter an assistance agreement whereby the state agrees to provide financial assistance to the applicant for the project in the form of a survey and planning grant, in amount not to exceed $30,000. Now therefore be it resolved, the Enfield Town Council authorizes the town manager, Christopher W. Bronson, to sign the assistance agreement with the state of Connecticut, acting by the Department of Economic Community Development, so prepared by Nelson Teresio, Deputy Director of Economic and Community Development, on July 15, 2019. Councilor Muller. Second by Councilor Ungary. Lord?
Right, this is my last item.
This is your last one.
My last item, I promise. So the Department of Economic and Community Development oversees the State Historic Preservation Office, and they are the ones that have this grant that they are offering to the town. We've already gone through all the process, the bidding and review of the consultants. So at this point, we're just seeking approval for the town manager to sign the assistance agreement. This project should last till about August of 2021, so if not sooner. But then we'll have a full historic survey.
And again, Mr. Mayor, we are a historic town. When we had the children had come, or the students, I should say, come in doing their history of the Civil War, I mean, it's amazing what they find. Kudos to Nelson, who, since he's come on board, has unearthed and ferreted out and is pursuing grants and all kinds of things across the town for the town, and also for, as we know, the opera players, for the Historic Society. He went out there, spoke with them, did the work, had us certified as a local government, a certified local government to be eligible, much like the last thing we talked about. Once we were certified, got us certified, and now we're eligible for this $30,000 grant, which is non-matching, to go in to do this historic assessment. And actually, we're eligible to submit at least 2 of our historic places to be on the National Historic Register. That opens up all other kinds of funding and for tourism and puts us on the map. So again, when you have a good staff, you have a full staff and a very professional and competent staff, you can get a lot done. And in the last year and a half, I think you see the results, and a lot of these things are coming to fruition, and this is one of them. This is wonderful for the town.
Any questions? And again, the good news, this is all over at town, too. This is not just one section of town. This is going to be all over Enfield, which we have historic buildings and landmarks all over town. That's the beauty of this, is now it opens up to the entire town.
That is correct.
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Counselor Sferrazza.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Bosco is out. Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
There's 7 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
I think you're done, right? Thank you
I'm
for
done.
hanging in there. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy summer.
Yes, you as well. Welcome back. Item O, discussion resolution under miscellaneous, resolution granting the Blight Review Committee the authority to waive or reduce fines up to $10,000. Whereas the Blight Review Committee was established to review property owners' requests to reduce or waive unpaid accrued fines. Whereas the Blight Review Committee must consult with the town council to establish a maximum amount of waiver or reduction that they will be authorized to approve. Whereas the Blight Review Committee would like the ability to reduce or waive fines up to a maximum amount of $10,000. Whereas any recommendation over $10,000 be brought before the town council for a vote. Now therefore be it resolved, the Enfield Town Council does hereby grant the Blight Review Committee authority to reduce or waive fines up to the maximum amount of $10,000, submitted by Kasha Purcell, the Assistant Town Manager, on July 26, 2019. By Councilor Muller.
Second.
By Councilor Denny. Councilor Sakala.
Were you going to do an overview first, or?
I was going to open up the questions. I was
Okay.
basically going to say that we spend a lot of time in this council doing the blight review ordinance, and then this is something, it's too bad Joey weren't here. He's been out visiting, but this is something that he had wanted for years. This is sort of the safety valve for those who are caught up in the blight process, who then ultimately have liens on their property, and if they've missed the appeal periods or didn't appeal or didn't prevail, they're left with those liens on the property really forever. So this was a safety valve for people to come with medical and hardship and other perhaps elderly people, and those who then did bring their property in compliance after a year grace period, so we make sure that they're sincere about it, would be able to come to a committee that you've appointed and plead their case. So that's what it's about. Town Attorney Mark Serrato has worked hard on it. Kasha has been involved with Donna and the subcommittee after the council passed the initial ordinance, so we can direct your questions however they should be.
Councilor Sakala has the floor first.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm not against this. I just have a couple of clarifying questions. Why $10,000 would be my first question. My second question is, how much, because I don't know actually, how much is a fine? I mean, can a fine range from $25 to $6,000? I mean, how long does it take to get
Perhaps
to
Mark can
$10,000?
address that part of it.
Fines are $75 a day, so multiply that by 30, that's $2,100 a month. I'm sorry. The fines are $75 per day, so over the course of a month, it's approximately $2,100. Over the course of a year, you're talking about $24,000 to $25,000 if the penalty, if the property's not cleaned up.
Not brought into compliance, yeah.
These fines can range. I think we've had in the past ones going over $100,000.
Correct. And they have come to the council when they've been foreclosed or a bank wants to take it over, there's a sale, and they've asked us to come in, and we have reduced it, knowing that we're getting a good lion's share of the fines.
Right.
Usually we've done about 50% that we get, and then also we get the property back on the tax rolls.
Right, and I don't, like I said, I don't necessarily have a problem with that, but why $10,000? What is $10,000? Is that a good threshold? I mean, do we only have
Donna, 'cause she was
50%
involved,
that's
would
under
wanna answer that.
10,000, or?
Good question.
Donna's on the
I mean,
floor
is
to
that,
Donna.
is this going to still flood us with,
Good question.
with people coming in to ask us permission, or is this going to get 70% of them? You know, I want to know what the rationale is behind $10,000.
Donna, go ahead, Donna.
Well, basically, we kind of looked at, a lot of these fines get run up because somebody will mow their lawn, maintain their lawn, and they don't call for our zoning officers to go out and look at it. So if somebody doesn't tell them that they mow the lawn, in 5 months they have this $10,000. We just felt that we didn't want to be, I guess, granting stuff that was large dollar amounts that seemed that it would need the whole council. We would give a recommendation if it is over $10,000. Now, you have to understand that this is just fines. There's never a reversal on any monies that's expended by the town.
No, that's fine. I guess I just was making sure that this is not an arbitrary number, but if you're saying it's about $2,100, give or so, a month, we're talking about less than 6 months for this. That's logic enough-ish for me, that we're not just saying $10,000 is a good time. Like, I just needed something to explain, somebody to explain to me why.
We actually met 3 meetings. We've had 3 meetings already to get to this point where we are doing that. We do have one more step, and this is what if someone comes before us and we decide that we cannot forgive the fine, then we have to come up with the recommendations, and Kasha has been coming to all the meetings. Whether we send it to court, we foreclose, or what we do, there is one more leg that we still have to determine what we're going to do. They don't believe that there's going to be a lot coming to us. Basically, this council has done 3. We've done 12 Jefferson, we did, is it 104 South Road, and we did, is it Connecticut Ave that we did?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the 1 year that they have to be in compliance is not for when it's a sale. If it's a sale, then that would go through immediately.
Okay.
And there's other things that we find that people, when they're not in compliance with one thing, they might not, there might be other things, like once a roof is fixed, it's fixed. That roof is going to be in compliance, but there could be other issues, so that's why we're going for the 1 year.
Okay. And there is some sort of criteria that they have to meet in order for you guys to say, yeah, we're going to waive it? There's going to be a procedure where it's not,
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we actually went to, you can write a persuasive letter And we have a checklist of things that could qualify you to have this. So, but you know, it is going to be a little touchy-feely.
Yep.
Well, it's like any of the other ordinances we've passed that are, affecting important rights, that you pass it, you try to do the best you can, then we'll get feedback, as we have with other recently passed ordinances, and then you can amend and we adjust. But this is a great first draft of it, and it addresses the major concerns and issues we've had over time. And as the counselor has said, it's important, I think, for larger numbers, the whole council should look at that. Like with most subcommittees, make a recommendation, give some discretion, but the larger issue the authority should be retained by the council. And as when I sat in that chair for years, when these fines are going up over 100,000, we were always concerned that, you go to court to a judge and say, yeah, we want to take someone's house because they didn't cut their lawn. It's not a good position to be in. So we said we want to reach a certain point, then get an idea, let's go the enforcement route and stop just putting these fines on, because what we're really trying to do, our ultimate goal, like we just putting these other properties, is to get them on the market, to get them sold, to get them fixed up, to be part of the neighborhood and back on the tax roll. So that's the goal. And I think, they've done an incredible amount of work on it. I think, again, we'll have to tweak it as we go forward, but it's a heck of a big first step.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Suzak, you have the floor, or are you all set?
I'm all set.
Gina, you're all
You all
set. Council Sferrazza, then Council Bosco.
I just have a question. If it's under $10,000 and the Blight Review Committee makes a decision and the person's not happy, is there an appeal from there to the council?
No. Goes to court.
No legal appeal, no.
Okay, so their next appeal would be to a court?
No,
No.
there's no appeal.
What we should know, this
straight down.
is really being done out of the graciousness of the council. They've already failed to exhaust any appeal, or they didn't take one, or they took the one and lost. So this is the council saying, all right, we recognize you're out of legal remedies, but we're going to let you come to this committee and plead your case. Maybe a year or two has gone by, something's changed. We had a gentleman here, I think you remember a few months ago, who has a big fine, and didn't get his mail, didn't look at it, didn't address it. So what we've said is, well, you can't come in the next week that you're in compliance. You got to wait at least a year. But this is just I think, a recognition that some people, they reach hard times, or family members are elderly, or they're ill for a while and they didn't take care of business. We're giving them another bite at the apple.
Okay.
But we're not going to give them the third bite. We'll give them the second bite.
Boxes is, did you inherit this condition? I mean, some people will come before us and they had no clue.
Council Bosco, I know this is,
Well, I guess
go ahead.
I just got my question answered. It's going to be 1 year. Okay, that's all I care about.
Anyone else? But again, I think, Chris, to your point, this is I think Councilor Bosco and I think Councilor Denny for years has said, getting one final, say if you're in compliance, the goal is to get you into compliance and fix your property. This is sort of to your point, kind of the last carrot we can give, before it gets to that next level, which I think has been the division of the Blight Board for many years. So I think you're getting there pretty quickly. Roll call, please.
Councilor Muller.
4.
Councilor Sferrazza.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Councilor Ungary.
4.
Councilor Bosco.
4.
Councilor Sakala.
4.
Councilor Denny.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
There's 8 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
We're getting there. Item P, resolution amending Schedule A of the facility use policy. Now therefore be it resolved, the Enfield Town Council does hereby amend the attached Schedule A of the facilities use policy by 1, adding the Enfield Fireballs to the exempt team list, 2, charging exempt teams per day per complex for tournaments, and allowing 3, refund of fees for teams that are approved to be on the exempt list after payment has been made, created by the Town Manager's Office on July 26, 2019. By Councilor Muller.
Second.
By Councilor Denny. I don't know if anyone from the committee wants to, Joey, quick, then I'll go to Councilor Sakala. Councilor Bosco.
I just want to make sure that we got it perfectly clear that exempt teams are the complex, more or less, and the non-exempt teams are the field. Just that way there's no confusion. It's on record, and because I know it was a little bit tough field complex, so I'm all set. Thank you.
Councilor Sakala.
Why are they exempt? Why
What's
are they
that?
going on the exempt list? Fireballs.
They met the criteria that
With their, and it says it, teams provided their roster improve not-for-profit status. And the roster was fine.
And they met the resident requirement for the town of Enfield.
Okay.
You have the floor, you're okay? Make sure.
Do I have the floor?
Yeah, you do.
Sure. Am I okay? No.
Oh, you meant you still
I'm
have
good,
yes,
though. We're
okay.
fine. We're just gonna, I'm not fighting about this anymore. I'm done with it.
Anyone else have any comments or questions? Roll call, please.
Counselor Muller,
4.
Counselor Sferrazza,
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
There's 8 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
Item Q, the toughest one of the night, resolution canceling the selected regular meeting. Resolve the Enfield Town Council does hereby cancel the regular meeting of the council scheduled for August 19, 2019, submitted by the town manager's office,
So moved.
by Counselor Muller, by Counselor Ungary. Somewhat self-explanatory, but does anyone have any questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Muller,
4.
Counselor Sferrazza.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Bosco.
Regretfully, 4.
Counselor Sakala.
Against.
Counselor Denny.
I'm kidding. 4.
Oh, all right, well. Counselor Denny.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
There's 8 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
Moving on to item 16, public communications for folks who stuck around. Anyone like to speak for the council at this time? Mr. Walsh.
You know, I understand the world's changed. Hello? All right, I understand the world's changed, and I mean, we moved here like a little before 1960, and I grew up on Theodore Street till I was 12. Does anybody remember what the roads felt like back then to ride your bicycle on? There was no such thing as riding a skateboard on them. Okay, so I mean, I feel bad that little Johnny might have a hard time riding a skateboard, and somebody might have to wear shoes walking down the street, but we don't have the money to do all the streets in town. So if chip sealing would work, you know, and that's not the only option. I came before this council a few years back before I stopped coming with a lot more options. There's that machine that, what's his name, Rafferty's got over there that grinds it up and uses what they grind, not a milling machine, but they grind it up and they use it as the base. All right, we can do a lot of neighborhoods with that. Of course, I know we have a problem with sewers because we never maintained our sewers, so now we got to replace them. But chip sealing, like, you're going to have to do Raffia Road again. It's all cracked. What are you going to do, dig that up and pave it again? All right? Town Farm Road's cracking. Okay? Some parts of post office have got cracks in it. You can see, like, where they seamed it together is a crack. The Weymouth School. And there's another thing. I went on this weight loss thing a few years back, and I did a lot of walking. And walking around my block, I happened to notice how they sealed up the cracks in Elizabeth Street. It looks like somebody spray painted the cracks. There's nothing in them, but there's black lines around them, you know, because they didn't fill them up. And I know a little bit about paving because I drove a dump truck for 9 years. And I know that when you pave a road, it's like paint. And you know about paint. It mirrors whatever's underneath it. And pavement does the same thing. If there's cracks under there, the next spring you're going to have cracks again. Well, my whole neighborhood has cracks because I came home one day at lunchtime and I seen the tack truck out there doing Duff, I think it was, whatever that street is off of, I don't even know the streets in my own neighborhood. But, and I said to my father, I says, you know, what are they doing? Oh, they're paving it. They're taking care of it. Don't complain. Well, they run the tack truck down. They ain't blowing out the street. They just run the tack truck and resurfaced it. And the following spring, it was cracked again. Same thing with Elizabeth and the surrounding streets. So we don't really do our streets correctly. And we could be a little more cost effective so the rest of us get our streets done because there's not enough money to do everything that needs to be done. And my street's the only one in the neighborhood that ain't been done. And sooner or later, I'm gonna probably sell my house and get the heck out of here because I'd like to retire someday. And I'm gonna have to pave my driveway. My wife says, well, why don't you just pave it? Well, I'm not gonna pave my driveway and all of a sudden 2 years from now, they're gonna come down and cut the bottom half of it out and pave my street. So, you know, I came up here before and brought up chip sealing because I went to my brother-in-law's house in Summers. And by the way, you know, he has a really nice house in Summers on a bigger piece of property than mine. His tax bill is the same as mine. I understand he doesn't have a lot of services that we have here, but a lot of services that we have here I don't use, so.
30
But,
seconds, Mr. Walsh, 30 seconds.
Okay, but anyways, again, you know, I basically came up here because we need to be a little more conservative with how we do our roads, so the rest of us get our streets paved, and maybe pay more attention to, like around the sewers, we're like over on Brainerd Road where they cut them out. You know what's going to happen to those where they cut them out and it's going to crack all around because they're not even sealed where they put in the little patches. We should have made the contractor who blew it putting the sewers in, rip it all back up and do it again at his cost. But anyways, that's why I brought up the chip sealing, because we need to do something so that everybody's streets get paved, not just a few.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak for the council? Bob?
Bob, Woodgate. You know, we wonder why the towns aren't getting enough money from the state. If you look at the way they run the lottery in Connecticut, they only pay out 2 to 1. Massachusetts pays out 4 to 1, but they're collecting $5 billion. We're only collecting $1 billion. Even though they're double the size, many Massachusetts people go up and buy tickets in Massachusetts. All you have to do is sit up at the Pride Station at State Line and see all the Connecticut cars come in. So, state doesn't know how to handle gambling, and it should be taken away from them. Foxwoods is paying below the minimum required. They're getting a fine every week. They're paying the fine rather than give the money to the players. I have another issue with this high grass thing. I think that's ridiculous because you got people putting bushes on their front lawn, and one of them is an employee of the town. How come they don't get fined for being blight? Because they don't want to grow grass. There's a house, if you go down by the courthouse and the Enfield fire station, right that stop sign, the house right across the street. You can't even see the house. There's so much grass growing. There's junk boats and cars and everything else. How come they're not being cited for blight? I don't understand it. Now, I wanted to say one thing. There's no such intersection in Hazardville with North Maple and Hazard Avenue, because that's not North Maple Street. That's Maple Street. North Maple does not start till 300. The sign is incorrect. I've asked to have that sign corrected before. It's Maple Street, not North Maple. I have an issue with the lights on Hazard Avenue. As you noticed, very few trailer trucks go down Hazard Avenue. They go down Elm Street because the lights are sequenced wrong. If you go out on Enfield Street from South Road or Post Office Road, you have to wait about 30 seconds before the light changes. But you come out at any street on the mall, any driveway on the mall, as soon as they're approaching to go out, they're about 100 feet or 200 feet from there, they trip the light turns instantly, you stop 20 cars. If you hit the light at Middle Road, you hit just about every light till you get to the highway. The sequence is wrong, and we wonder why there's a traffic problem. It's because of the sequence of the light, not the way the streets are designed. The state should come in and correct that. That's totally incorrect how that's set up. It's not set up to reduce traffic. It's set up to create traffic problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak for the council? Anyone else like to speak for the council? For the second time? Hearing none, I declare public communications closed. Any council communications? Deputy Mayor Suzak?
I know. I've had my 5 minutes, but I heard a little conversation here, but I did go to the Scantic River meeting today, with the Scantic Park, and I think at that meeting we met with DEEP. This is something we've been doing for 6 years. We've we've done our end, they have kind of done their end, and we had, I believe, 7 people from the state came up. I mean, we've improved the neighborhood, we've improved the noise, but it costs the town of Enfield about $500 a day to police the entrance to the Scantic River Park. So we are looking at perhaps charging for parking for out-of-state parking there. And for me, I would like to see the parking there be not on a daily basis, but on an hourly basis, so that those 10 spaces have revolving use of the park, so that people can come, hike, come back to their cars, and leave. Because right now, what happens is the 10 spaces are full. That's it, done, end game. So we're trying to try to turn the park a little bit back into what its original intent was. Because the parking is designed for the use of the park and the size. And we're still working on it, and we have a really good relationship with DEEP on this, and we're looking to maybe get an MOU to expand what the town of Enfield is able to enforce. So, thank you.
Councilor Bosco.
Well, Tom left, but what he was talking about is exactly what Donna and I have been saying for years is, you know, these roads have been there forever. If they're not a high-traveled road, reclaim them and pave them so we can just get more miles of road. So we've been talking about it forever, and it really needs, that's what we need to start thinking a different way now.
And Donald Nunes will be addressing that when he does his Roads 2020 presentation, because we should review all of this and have a plan in place before we go to referendum on that.
Councilor Sferrazza.
Don, as far as what you were saying, you know, I don't know if the parking by hour would work or not, but I know one thing, that you're not going to solve the overcrowding of the park, because a lot of the people park legally on Dust House Road. So you get a ton of cars on Dust House Road, and you're still going to have the same issues that require the police now. So I don't know.
You know, Carl, it hasn't been an easy solution, but it has been much better for the residents, with the residents on Powder Bridge having to have, you know, resident parking stickers for their cars. We put no parking all up. It has been better, the no alcohol at the park, but everybody doesn't realize that is not designated for swimming. And today we were down there, the E. coli counts are high according to the Scantic Water Shed Association, who does the readings. The sign is up there, you know, only for boating, but yet there's people swimming in there. So, you know, Representative Hall was there, Representative Arnone was there, Kate was there from John Kissel's office. We have improved substantially. But we pick up the garbage on Mondays, and we pick up the garbage on Thursdays. And they actually send a DEEP person every Monday to walk through the park and pick up any trash that is around. But that being said, there was 10 barrels there. That's a lot of trash for us to pick up from a state park. So, you know, this is going to cost us probably, I don't know, $10,000, maybe $12,000. I know it doesn't sound like a lot of money in our budget, but it is a lot of money, because, you know, we're all looking at how we charge for fields now, so people can contribute that are using the facilities. We got to somehow get the state on board with this, and they do have kiosks that will, you know, spit out parking passes for a couple of hours. And if we get an MOU that we have the right to fine the people who don't have proper parking, maybe we get a little bit of movement on the park. But we're still working on it, and I think we've made a lot of progress.
Anyone else? Hearing none, a motion to adjourn. Councilor Sakala, seconded by Councilor Sferrazza. By show of hands, all those in favor? 8 in favor, 0 against. Good night, everyone. Have a great summer. We'll see you when school starts.